Testing, testing.
We're ready to go.
Testing, testing.
Okay, I'm sorry for the delay. We just had an equipment malfunction, but it's fixed now. Been asked to start over since I wasn't 30 minutes into it. This won't be too painful. First of all, again, Happy New Year to all of you, and thanks for coming down and taking your time. I wanted to say at the very beginning, as I said before, we were going to have a progress report on the ordinance on the 20th of January. We had written notices downtown we were handing out. We have a new amended notice we're handing out now that has moved the date to the 3rd of February. So that's a city council meeting in these chambers on February 3rd. I will give a status report to the city council on the ordinance. So disregard the 20th date. It will not be heard then. And the reason for that, as I said before, is the mayor is unavailable and she really needs to be here for that report. Second, I am gathering information, so that's part of what today is, to gather information from you. So I need to know what you think, how you feel about it, what you think is working and not working. I respect the fact that there are a number of people in this room that don't like this at all. At least one person who I know and respect has filed a lawsuit, and I absolutely do respect that. But we're not here to litigate today. We're not here to talk about things that are more appropriate for a court to decide or something else to decide. I'm not trying to tell you how to speak or what to speak, but it'd be more productive if you just aimed your comments and criticisms at what's working and what's not working. And if you want to say the whole enchilada is not working, that's fine with me too. But tell me why, tell me what you think, because that to me is going to be the most productive report I can give to the council. The ordinance has been in place for a couple of months now. A couple of things that we found out as we started going through it was we had a couple of problems with the computer system. As you know, we didn't really start running until November 16th. We were supposed to be up on November 1st. When it rolled out on the 16th, many of you who recall that first day, we had bad weather and rain, so many of the performance zones were not occupied. As it got warmer and people got more used to the system, we found that every night we would run the lottery, every space was assigned. But what we found out was just because a space was assigned to a performer didn't mean a performer was going to show up and use the space. It could be because enrolled just to have a backup in case you wanted a space and deliberately not show up. It could be somebody got sick. We don't know. But we know what that created were a number of open spaces which we decided we would make available to anyone on a first-come, first-served basis, provided they understood that if the person who drew that space on the lottery showed up and claimed it for that time period, they had to leave. And so that's what's been going on so far. We had a lot of discussion internally about how it works if you enter the lottery or don't enter the lottery. A number of people have decided to not enter the lottery because there have been enough empty spaces. They would rather pick what they would consider a prime space on the luck that it's available rather than enter the lottery and maybe get a space that's less desirable. And what we decided was that with the lottery, if you're in it because it has some advantages. The advantages are you will have a space that's yours if you get a space for that 2-hour time period. The disadvantage is it may not be the most desirable physical location in the mall. But if you're in the lottery, you get a space. The decision was you don't get to opt out of the lottery once you have a space and start picking spaces. It's one or the other. So you're in the lottery, you get the space, and that's the spaces you have throughout the evening. Or you're not in the lottery, and you can certainly feel free not to enter the lottery and just perform in a performance zone on a first-come, first-served basis. And we really haven't had a lot of issues with that based on my conversations with the marshals and with the Metropolitan Police Department. But I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think. Couple of things, and we're going to talk about it. These performance zones were designed to separate everybody. They're 40 feet apart, and we allow you to have equipment and things like that in it, but not things that spill out beyond the 6 feet. One of the things that we have had reports about, and we'll talk about it, and I want to hear from you as well, are people doing things outside the circle. Walking outside the circle, grabbing people outside the circle. Some people have objects like whips or whatever, and they'll hit people. You know, it's not a real whip, but it's to get their attention. And those things are prohibited. Touching people outside the circle is prohibited. Accepting a tip or gratuity, that's fine. but stepping out the sides of the circle isn't, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. We are looking at some changes in the future. Nothing is carved in stone right now. A couple of things that we're looking at is to memorialize what I just discussed with the lottery versus no lottery. We don't really address that right now. It's not prohibited, but we don't really address it, and so we're thinking of backing into that. The other thing that we're looking at is to change our computer program so that when you go on every evening and you decide that you want to be in the lottery, you will be able to tell us the spaces that you prefer. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get them, but it's a little more sophisticated than what we have right now, because a lot of you don't want to be in certain spaces. If you don't get the good space, you don't want to be down there because it doesn't work for your type of performance, and I understand that. And so we're going to try and develop this computer program, and when that happens, we're going to want your input, because it can be done several ways. You could go online and you could say, I want to be in the lottery for all these time periods, all night long, and I really just want spaces 11 through 15. Or we could just say, I want the block in front of the nugget, or the block in front of this, or the block in front of that. So there's a lot of ways to slice it. We want to hear from you. The other thing that we're looking at doing is putting a bulletin board on our website. That was a suggestion from one of you that I think was a good one. That will allow you to know when there's a special event, in addition to getting it from the booth or hearing it from Fremont Street Experience. One of the things we've been doing right now, and we're going to continue to do for a while, is not close any of the spaces around the stages. Now, that's not to say we're not going to close spaces. Let me explain the difference. Well, as I explained before, Fremont Street Experience throws different types of events on these stages, and I believe arguably a lot of them are not the kinds of events that the city anticipated eliminating spaces for. If there is a DJ up there or somebody doing a passive act, there's no large crowd involved or anything like that, there's no reason those spaces shouldn't be available. On the other hand, when there's a band that's very popular, and you've all been there when that happens, and there's 1,000 people in front of a stage, it makes it very difficult for a band to perform with a performer out there in front as well. And there have been a few conflicts with that, but we have not prohibited it. There have been some people that have acts that are passive. You're all familiar with the levitators. They don't have to speak or anything, and so if they don't mind being near a stage sometime, because there's a large crowd by the stage. Other people, like Buddy, your act probably wouldn't go very well while there's a crowd in front of a stage and people are performing. I don't know. I'm just saying that right now we're letting you decide that. If you want to use those zones, you can use them. But in the future, there will probably be a change. We're not making it right now. But we are eliminating spaces for special events. There is one special event each year where every space is going to be eliminated, and it's New Year's Eve. And there are other times of the year when certain events where a particular stage is used, and you've all seen it. The First Street stage had a couple of special events around it. A big fence went up around. Those spaces were eliminated from the lottery that night. When you think about it, this is absolutely no different than any other public space in this town. Streets and sidewalks are open all the time, and we close them from time to time for special events. Maybe a parade, it may be a filming of a movie, it may be some other event, but we do that all the time. So Fremont Street isn't really any different in that respect, except they have the right to have special events from time to time, and this bulletin board will be an opportunity for us to communicate that to you a little more in advance. Go ahead, Mike.
Why are they prohibited on New Year's Eve? What would the difference be if they were a regular person walking there, or they were in costume, or whatever?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about two aspects of that. One aspect is just the fact that it's a private event, and I know that performers in the past bought the wristband and went to the private event and then put on the makeup or put on the costume and performed. The problem with New Year's Eve, there is a saturation of people down there that is so dense that to get people in and out of that mall with the kiosks and the performers and everything is just unmanageable. And so the decision was made to not allow that. The other thing is, certain performers wear masks, or they wear paint, and they wear whatever. And I understand that. But the fact of the matter is, there are security issues involved with that. And so that's one of the things that they have brought up. But the main reason is just the conflict between the crowds and the performers. And that's why they eliminate that night. And they've tried to, and I've worked with Fremont Street, I've worked with others, so that when these events occur, as you know, there's a setup time and a takedown time. And that really kind of eliminates these circles a little bit earlier and keeps them eliminated a little bit later, because it's not just the event itself, it's the setup and the takedown. So we've tried to really condense that and make it as tight as possible to keep these circles open as long as possible for you. But that's, I want to hear how well we're doing with that.
What if you made special accommodations several weeks ahead of time to allow people to register and determine who would get those spots, maybe 2 weeks ahead of time? they could coordinate with security, still have the right to be there. And whether they had makeup or amplification, you would know they're not terrorists, because that was one of these things that had a security problem. We don't know if that amp has a bomb in it, and if the backpack has a bomb. But if it was coordinated ahead of time, their rights to be there would still be done, plus satisfy the concerns.
I'm not an officer, and I don't handle Homeland Security, but I think it's a valid question, and I don't know the answer to it, Mike. And what I would be willing to do is, certainly talk with Metro afterwards and others. I do know this, as you all know, this last year was a very, very serious year when it came to terrorism nationwide. Between the incident in France and the Russian plane going down over Egypt and things like that, this year there really was a serious terrorist threat on New Year's Eve. And so everybody was taking every little thing seriously. So as much as we know you, and I know you're not a terrorist, and I know your backpack doesn't have a bomb in it, we're not allowing any backpacks in that thing on New Year's Eve. We're not allowing anybody to bring anything in on New Year's Eve. And that's just the country we live in today. It has nothing to do with street performers or me or you. It's just the country we live in. But I will be glad to share your idea with them.
An idea to make it possible if it was time ahead of time. 'Cause I'm not sure when people register for
Brad, could we have folks go to the microphone so we can hear them? We're live streaming this.
I'm sorry, you want? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can I do this? Can I beg your indulgence for a moment? I'm almost done, and then I'm going to open up the microphone, and then you can come over here, Mike, and you can have whatever time you need. No worries. No worries. Well, I'm just finishing up right now. Anyway, the bulletin board will hopefully get information out a little bit quicker. So let me just say this. Again, council meeting again on the 3rd of February. It's scheduled for 9 o'clock. I don't know when they'll actually get to the report itself. I'll be giving it. But I have been collecting information. Some information I would like to share with you a little bit. I have talked with a lot of people. I don't just talk to the casinos. I don't just talk to the managers of the mall. I don't just talk to whatever. Those of you who know me, when I'm on the street, I'm talking to everybody. And I'm asking what's going on, and I have a lot of people telling me what's going on. And sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not. But either way, I know you and I respect you. I do know that...
When you say something like that, that's the truth. I've been down there for a month and you once.
Right, this is true.
Please go out there and say you
Well, let me, please. When the microphone's open, you can say whatever you want to me, but just wait for the microphone. Yeah, don't let me misstate. I am not down there every night. When this started, I was down there every night for about 2 weeks. And you see me twice in a month. Yeah. Can we argue about this later, please? I really have to insist. We've got to do this one way, guys, with respect, please. I really do respect you, and I'm going to give you the microphone in a minute. You can say whatever you want. But please, just give me a chance to finish. The fact of the matter is, I have been down there. I do know you. I will freely admit in the last month and a half, because of holidays and stuff like that, I've been down there very seldom. I will be down there more between now and the report. But the fact of the matter is, one of the reasons I was down there was not because it's my job to be down there. It's because I had a very strong interest in seeing it for myself, how those first days and weeks started to work out. And as things began to smooth out, my presence was less necessary. At least I felt that. The fact of the matter is, it's not my job to run the Fremont Street Experience or this program, but I do have a strong interest in seeing to it that it works. And that's why we're here today. What I'm going to tell you is that the complaints about problems that led to the ordinance, fighting, competing for spots, grabbing tourists, things like that, things that came to us from letters, from Facebook pages, social media, letters to the mayor's office, have dropped to almost nothing. I've called the mayor's office, and one of the statistics I will cite on the 3rd, and this is a fact, I asked them, how many complaints did you receive about street performers in Fremont Street prior to the ordinance? The answer was at least a couple dozen a month, sometimes more. How many since November 16th? The answer is 1. This has, and many people have come to us and said, I didn't feel safe downtown before. I didn't want to come visit your town before. I didn't want to come to your Fremont Street Experience because of the bad experience. And we've heard a number of people say that they have a good experience now. And hopefully that has resulted in more people coming to view your performances, more people feeling safer and tipping you and doing whatever. If that is true, and I don't know for a fact yet that it is, but if that is true, then I hope that this has been somewhat of a success. But I want to hear from you. At the very end, when I get done talking, as a matter of fact, let me interrupt for a moment. Today, we have Captain Walsh with us from the Downtown Area Command with the Metropolitan Police Department. You may have seen him on Fremont Street. You've certainly seen people that work for the Downtown Area Command. He, too, has reported to us a dramatic decrease in complaints and problems on Fremont Street. He asked if he could be here today to talk to you about maybe starting, in addition to you're telling me what you think about the ordinance, starting a new partnership with you. You are eyes and ears on the ground. You know that street better than anyone. You see it every day. You know the people down there. And as I mentioned earlier, we don't live in the same world we lived in before 9/11. And so from time to time, you've seen it. Somebody will leave a backpack on that street, and all of a sudden there's security all around it because we don't know who left it there. That's happened in Boston a couple of years ago, and we know exactly what happened there. So we take these things very seriously. Captain Walsh has got a program called See Something, Say Something, and he would like to have a few moments to come up and talk to you about it. So if you're okay, Captain, I'll bring you up right now. When the Captain is done, I'll open the microphone and listen to all of you. So with your indulgence, please welcome Captain Walsh.
I'm not worthy of applause, believe me. I know a few folks here we've met with already that have gone through a version of the See Something, Say Something program, and really it's called the 7 Signs of Terrorism. You know, if you look around the world, just in recent events, name 2 cities, Paris and San Bernardino, obviously 2 things that when we look at from a police perspective, from a Homeland Security perspective, very troubling, you know, especially when you look at Fremont Street and the work that's been done down there, and 17 million people a year visiting the Fremont Street experience, large crowds, big gathering place, and obviously our staffing and the staffing of Fremont Street, and from a security perspective, the staffing from the hotels. Obviously we have a lot of people out there trying to keep everybody safe, but we can multiply that number that are just out there, extra sets of eyes and ears, by offering training to anyone who works down there. We obviously have that training available to people who work in the casino, but I had in the casino industry, but I had the idea and the concept of being able to incorporate that training for everyone that's down there. Adam and a few other folks have already, we ran them through it. It seemed to be successful for them. They got something out of it. And I think too, what it helps is the more partners I can have, the better. And the better job that I can do in keeping people safe. And what we've seen since the 2 major incidents I spoke about already is our suspicious activity reporting that we receive from the community. The numbers have gone up so much since San Bernardino and Paris that that's a good sign. You know, the more people that are out there looking and seeing behaviors, and let's face it, you guys are in the people business. You know how to read people, you know, as good as anybody else. Because you're out there, you deal with the public, you know how to interact with the public, and you just know when something's out of place. And a lot of times when the critiques and the reviews of things that occur in other cities come about, there's always something, oh, there's a neighbor that, well, you know, this was strange, or there's people that say, well, you know, I thought about this, but I never reported it, you know. That's the thing. You guys see, you know, if you're out there as much as I see out there, as much as we know you're out there, then it's just extra sets of eyes and ears for us, to where you can either call it in, there's a whole process to report suspicious activity, or if you just grab a security officer or a patrol officer, just we can teach you certain things to look for, certain behavioral indicators to look for, on top of the things that you just know are out of place. So what I really don't have, though, is I don't have a database of everyone who's out there working as a street performer. So we just have to come up with, Brad was willing to help with coming up with a way to just get names, email addresses, and I can send an email out to everybody, and we can pick a day that's convenient. If we have to do a couple of classes to get everybody in there, we can certainly do that as well. And it really, if we'll do it for, I'll have it done for 2 people, I'll have it done for 20 people. It doesn't matter to me the size. We can just pick a date and a location to do it. Yes, sir.
I'm the president of the union for the street performers here on Strip. We have about 185, 200 that are normally out in the season. It's slow right in the Street West. But I can help, and I'd be willing to help organize with members of the union to do this in one large meeting in the city.
Okay. I'll give you my card. It's got my email address on it, and then we can talk when we're done. All right. Any questions for me?
Captain, thank you. again, this is a voluntary program. This is not an attempt to gather information on people. Most people have registered, have given us their emails and everything because they prefer to get the text messages and get whatever. But again, I think it's a good program, and I wanted the captain to have a few moments to explain it to you. Okay, it's your turn. If you want, we have microphones on each side. First come, first serve. Again, just if you want to identify yourself, you can. If you don't want to, that's fine too, but go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jared Carl. My girlfriend and I perform balloons down at Fremont Street. We met. Several things I'd like to discuss with you. One is seems to be a bit of a disconnect. You said you haven't been enforcing not using the lettered spots near the stages. On the 31st, all the spots were preempted like you discussed for New Year's Day, but then on the 1st and the 2nd, all of the lettered spots were also preempted. They did have bands on the stages, but it was the Van Halen and the Red Knot Chili Peppers and No Duh, the No Doubt tribute band. So these are bar bands, maybe bar bands that drove in from California, but there are bands that play the Fremont Street Experience for free. If we're just putting them, so they have been preempting these spots. I don't know if you're not aware of it, or so. And we were in one of those spots, and we were removed from it, and then there was no spot left to go to. So the other problem, like you discussed with unoccupied spots, right now being available, but later not being available. One of the reasons that the majority of them go unused, which you at the beginning you said you may not be aware of the reason of it, it's because for each different performance, only a small handful of the spots work, depending on what it is that you're doing. So when you roll a spot, like say you roll spots that are down by the Walgreens or right in front of a stage, depending if I'm doing spoken word poetry and I roll spots in front of stages, there's no reason for me to show up that night. It's really pointless for me to even try to speak. And not even just the example of poetry, even balloons. You can't speak to a child in front of 110 decibel speakers behind you, whether it's a band or whether it's a DJ. So if we get involved in the lottery and those are the spots we get, that's why we don't show up. And by the same token, other people might love that spot but hate a spot that we enjoy. And so that's why it needs to be that we rolled a bad spot, we're supposed to stand in front of the stage, so our free speech is silenced because of the sound behind us. And I'm looking at an available spot right there that someone else has not shown up for, but I'm not permitted to go and stand in that spot. I'm obligated to either stand in this one or go home. That seems unfair to me. There should always be a mechanism to go into an empty spot. Otherwise, you're not providing the 35 spots you said you're providing if at any time 40% of them are unoccupied.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, I will stop some of you just because I need more detail.
Please.
When you say that those spots were preempted, was it a special event? Was it fenced off, or were they just preempted?
No. It was the same band. Like it was a dual event on New Year's Eve. They had the New Year's Eve with the fake fireworks, and they also had all the cover bands in the world. They had cover bands, tribute bands for.
Well, New Year's is a special event. That's
absolutely.
The night, but
well,
the first and the
those
second
same bands were there the next day and the next day. So I think that's why they tried to color that as, oh, this is still the special event. But when you boil it down to it, these are guys dressed up like Van Halen, and is Van Halen themselves even relevant anymore? So is a tribute band preempts my First Amendment rights? You know what I'm saying? It seems,
I understand.
and
I
if
did not know
already
that.
in just that short time, it's already they're edging closer and closer to take away, and you're not even aware of it. What mechanism protects us?
I appreciate that.
You suggest a reduction in conflict was the purpose of all this. I've noticed a lot more conflict. A number of street performers whom I have never had a crossword with. People here who I've never even spoken ill to once. I'm in conflict with daily now. Now it's, is this your spot? No, this is my circle. No, I just went to the bathroom. This is my circle. Are you sure? What's your number? Let me get my smartphone out. Hang on. And I've come closer to a physical conflict with street performers since the introduction of your performance, of your ordinance, than in the 3 years that I've been out on that street. I've never had an aggressive encounter in 3 years. I've had several. Since the introduction of the ordinance, and it's, like you said, the slow season. Right now, last Sunday, we, during the 7 to 11 shift, didn't even get a spot. So we're talking, I'm walking around with my zip coke and earmuffs. We're in the off season. There are no naked people except for the very bravest ones. Come June, when am I ever going to get a spot if I'm already not getting a spot and not finding one available with the number of spots available in January? So this is the problems that we even just see glimmering now are going to be glaring. If people are willing to fight me now over a spot, how's it going to be in August when there's actual money to be made down there? When any girl with a roll of duct tape has a costume and gets a number and preempts everyone else.
Can I ask you this? One of the things we thought when we went through this was this potential scenario, that a fight's a fight, whether it's for a circle or for space before the circles were ever there.
Sure.
And that's why the lottery was kind of the lesser of all evils. It certainly, it gave you a spot, it was guaranteed. You would not have that, I went to the bathroom, you took my spot, we'd protect you. We would look at your Q reader code, and we would look at instantly that you have that spot for the evening, and that person would be booted out. The problem is when we had all these empty spaces, it hardly seemed fair to leave them empty when people wanted a space to perform.
You
And
can't.
so we have this system right now that is kind of a blend, where if you're in the lottery, you have to save the space you've got. And the reason for that is you really turn it upside down if you can move around. So I guess my question is, do you have an opinion as to whether or not it should be all lottery or all first come, first serve, or no opinion at all?
Well, this may be relevant. Recently, the DMV had a reservation system. You could get on the internet and you could log a spot in line, and then when you show up, from my numbers may be wrong, but they had a 10% rate of people not showing up for their appointments,
Right.
and they abandoned the system and went back to first come, first serve. And it seems like our equivalent would be not only continuing with the system, but when I don't show up for my appointment, that DMV official sits at her desk unoccupied for exactly 10 minutes until the timer runs out, and then she will handle the next employee.
We had this discussion, and you all may have a different opinion, but I'm just going to ask this gentleman, since he's the first one on the microphone. We had that discussion about what if we had an all lottery and no option but a lottery, and somebody didn't show up, at what point in time would we make that space available? And we thought 10 minutes, 15, 20. If you had to pick a time limit where you think somebody hasn't shown up in time, do you have a number?
I think the way that you do it now, where if I have rolled that in the lottery, if my number is 5555, and I show up even 10 minutes before the end of the shift, and this spot is 5555, it seems reasonable to me. You've shown up, it's your spot, it's yours. But for unoccupied spots, I believe they should be open for as long as they're open, until they are first come, first served taken.
So we're not assigned at all, they should be open.
Because if someone has chosen not, like they won it in the lottery, and then they chose not to claim their prize, it doesn't make sense for no one to get that spot now just because the person who won it in the lottery didn't want it.
Okay.
So, and if they decide they want it later, if they decide at halfway through the shift, 1 hour in, and there's already me standing there, and they show up, which leads me to another problem. She gets bullied out of spots every night when I'm not standing there. I used to be able to perform separately. Now I work security all night. Now I stand next to her because other street performers will approach and say, oh, this is my spot. Oh, number 14, 7 o'clock, yeah, this is mine. And at the beginning, you believe them. You're like, oh, okay, sorry, bud. All right, you pack your stuff up and you move. Then you realize, wait a minute, every spot is somebody's spot every time. And now you have to have your smartphone. And now I'm the cop. Now she's standing in her spot and someone shows up and I'm like, no, what's your number? Is this really your spot? It shouldn't be up to us. I mean, some of us don't have smartphones. Some of us don't have some guys print out the sheet every day. Some of us don't have a mechanism to print out the sheet and have a list. So that's something that needs to be figured out is there's bullying going on every single night. It's the more of that conflict. Someone comes up and they want your spot. They want to pay their rent. I want to pay my rent. Now there's a conflict. And that conflict didn't exist before. Before, I show up to my prime favorite spot, and there's some fellas there standing that look like Kiss. I just go down 20 feet. I still just make balloons. I don't care. They can dress however they want. I can make balloons here. We both coexist, and it works. Now suddenly I have a conflict with gentlemen dressed like Kiss who I've never even known before. But now there's a turf war. Now there's a spot. We both want that spot, and there's a reason to fight over it when there was never a reason to fight before. We imagined all this gauntlet of buskers that was blocking the way, but I never saw any of that. The only traffic blocking I ever saw was the immense crowds who would stop to watch the buskers. The buskers were so entertaining that 100 people would stop, and yeah, it would straight clog that giant street. But that wasn't what was portrayed in here when we talked. We talked like it was literally all characters and you couldn't walk past the characters. No, it was not characters. It was so many people watching this guy dance that you can't get by. And you try to excuse yourself and they tell you to F off because they're an American citizen and they want to watch this guy dance, which is why it was difficult to control crowds, which caused this whole thing in the first place. I don't have any right to tell my crowd where they should stand. If I'm juggling and you want to watch me, I have no control over you. I can't tell you, stand here, stand there. You say all night long, please, take 3 steps forward, please. And no one listens because you can't make them. You're not here to make them do things. We should be catering to the crowd. This is Las Vegas. We should be entertaining them however they wish to be entertained and not in a silly way. We used to have over 5 acts down at Fremont who'd been on America's Got Talent. Now there's 1 left, a dance crew, 1 left. The rest have gone to greener pastures. People who are legitimate performers can make money in any major city, and they've gone. What's left are the people who live on Fremont Street, 10 or 15 blocks up. They're always going to be here. They're going to figure out something that works. And when being in a costume stopped working, now everyone twists flowers. I don't know if you've noticed this, but we were supposed to make it a more kid-friendly place. Almost all the characters are gone. Almost all of them. Almost all the balloon artists are gone. We're almost gone. I know some of my fellow buskers disagree with me completely. Some of my fellow buskers are making twice as much money as they ever have. They love the new circles. It works for their act. That's what's wrong with this, is it's such a narrow definition of a performance that it benefits some at the expense of others. Some acts happen in a 6-foot circle and are perfect. They're unchanged by a 6-foot circle. The one remaining act that we have that's been on America's Got Talent is a dance crew. It's 2 gentlemen. They have a 6-foot circle. The amplifier's right behind them.
I've seen them.
So they have about 24 inches. Have you seen him? He can do the Michael Jackson. He can do that in a 30-foot circle. It's amazing. It's huge drifts of his legs. It's impossible to see how it works. He has to spin in place. It's absurd. Stand in the audience and listen to him. What's going on? Why is this guy standing in the circle? What is this joke? It seems like a joke. They take turns. I jump out. The other guy jumps in. It's a joke.
I'm not trying to rush you, but we're going to have a lot of people talking here, so if you make your points, I'm writing them all
I'm
down.
sorry. I just have many points, and I mean, but again, everyone else is going to probably say the same thing over and over again, like these meetings always go. So I would love to have these points. I have
I'm listening.
different points. Another point. Again, no respect to any of the I love all the police officers, all the marshals. My interactions with them have actually been really great. They almost seem like too much force for the tiny little things that are going on down on the street. And firefighters. I love firefighters. They do an amazing thing. Why are they defined differently than us? Firefighters can park their truck on the side of the street. They can stand on Fremont, collect donations into a boot, pose for pictures with pretty ladies, pose in front of city equipment. I love it. They should do that. Firefighters should collect donations. They should put out fires.
We don't have any firefighters down there.
I've seen it.
They're down there, I got photos.
I've seen it, sir.
Those are not our firefighters. Those are two individuals who have now.
There's a truck. Do they own a fire truck?
He doesn't go down there. He doesn't go down
I'm just saying, sir, that I've witnessed the police officers and the marshals posing for pictures, and they should. If the public wants a picture with a Las Vegas police officer, they should get it. But what we have now is the officers of the law holding girls' arms behind their back, like they're posed. Oh, I'm being arrested in Vegas. Here's a picture.
I've got
They don't have a
Lieutenant
circle.
Army with me right here from our Las Vegas Marshals.
And I'm not
See
trying
you.
to get any of them
I
in
am back
trouble.
here. Are any of our uniformed officers posing with people for pictures?
They'll pose for a picture, sure, but they will not take a tip or a donation, no.
My understanding of the ordinance is that taking the tips is not what distinguishes a performer. It's the act of taking the picture. By the draconian ordinance, every single person dancing on the dance floor has 72 hours to register. The way it's written, if you dance, costumed or uncostumed, sing. Every person who sings along with their favorite song as they walk by your ordinance, must have a registration, must have a circle. It's absurd. Because that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that the police officers shouldn't take pictures. I'm saying it's absurd to make 2 classes of people. That they may take pictures, I may not take pictures. Another problem, that's all I want to say about that one. I have an image here for you. Yes, sir. Basically, I've blurred the face.
Oh, you don't have to do it.
But what we basically have is my girlfriend performing in the elaborate costume that we've designed that costs us a lot of money to make. It's a giant hot air balloon. We're confined to our circle where we're required to be. Directly next to us, literally 6 inches outside the circle, we have what is defined as a beggar, not a performer. This person has a sign, it's been blown up in the bottom left. It says, single mom with stage 3 cancer trying to get to Maine. Anything helps. Problem is, this individual, in fact 3 different individuals, depending on who wants to work that day, stands next to this sign and have been for 3 years. I've seen them every day I've ever worked.
I have to.
This individual is an actor, a wonderful actor. Really gets their role, really gets to the heart of the public and pulls those heartstrings. This person should not be defined differently than me. They are an actor. And here's the beauty of this. So she stands here. I don't know, the same argument you made about why no one wants street performers near anywhere with a cash register, because no one wants to open the till with a street performer standing nearby. No one wants to come up and get a balloon. No one wants to come up and open their purse with a dangerous-looking person standing right there. So we're required to stay in this spot. She can go wherever she wants. The best spot for her to be is right next to us. And what's the end game here? We are intimidated. We leave. She slides into the spot, pulls out her palm-making stuff, and begins to twist palm flowers. Now she's a performer. I warned you about this stuff at the first meeting. I stood up here and said every one of these things was going to happen, and every single one of them is happening. If we had addressed these points as legitimate in the first place, we might have been able to go against them. And now, all the other things that I mentioned as possibly happening. Groups of street performers choreographed to switch spots. It's the only way to work enough hours. So you get 3 groups of people. We're in spot 8, 9, and 10. All right, coming up on the hour. 10's going to 8, 8's going to 9, 9's going to 10. All right, everybody, and move. And I'm not saying these people are doing what they have to do, because if they didn't do that, musical chairs. There's 100 of us and there's 35 chairs. Go, it's 7 o'clock. Go, it's 9 o'clock. These people need to figure out a strategy, and they're gonna. People are always going to figure out loopholes. There's no way for us to, let's make some more rules. Let's watch, let's monitor. Unless you're going to hire 35 guards and one's going to stand by each circle with a clipboard. I just don't see how rules are going to make this, because the people willing to break the rules are always going to find ways to break the rules.
Amen, amen, amen.
Enforcement of the circles. And these are all separate points, and hurry me along if I'm belaboring
I'm
one.
running everyone down because this is all going
All
to
right.
report. So
Enforcement of the circles. I have personally witnessed. Heather was working in a circle creating balloons. It was really slow, as it has been since the ordinance passed. It's actually very difficult for us. As an aside, many people are doing better. Last Sunday, we worked for 4 hours and left because we'd only made $6 in 4 hours. That doesn't cover our gas home. But so while for some acts they're making more and more money, for some reason that separation, that distance, no one's approaching the hot air balloon. It's fine. It's our choice to do what we do. What we do doesn't work on that street anymore, and we're probably not going to be there anymore, and it's changing the character of the street, what works and what doesn't. Flower twisting works. There's 9 of them there every night. And it's legitimate art. I'm not arguing that flower twisters shouldn't be able to. First Amendment protected. They're taking garbage, they're turning it into art. That's amazing. It works in a 6-foot circle. It works great. 9 of them of 35 circles are flower twisters. When it's warm enough for girls to be naked again, there's your other 25 circles. Enforcement of circles. She was standing in her circle. She was performing balloons. Another girl that we know that makes flower twisting was coming. She was off duty. She was carrying her stuff, going home. Stop to talk. We're all friends down there. You have to be, or you're enemies. So she stops. Her toes are inside the circle. Literally 4 inches of this woman's toes are in Heather's circle. Main security guy comes up, says, "Hey, you can't be in her circle." Woman does this. He goes, "That's better. Is this how these rules are to be enforced? Is this the light hand that you promised me? I stood there and you promised me a light hand of enforcement." We're talking toes in a circle. And where's that in the rules anyway, that another street performer, when not even performing, can't have their toes in a circle?
But when I had a conflict, then
Yeah.
those were allowed in my circle.
Furthermore, we recently, due to a misunderstanding of the rules, had a conflict with another street performer where we both felt entitled to a certain spot. He stood there while we waited for security, and in an intimidating fashion, put his stuff into our circle to try to push us out of it. And then after security arrived, I pointed this out. It's like, why are you allowing, until this dispute is resolved, why are you allowing him to put his things in this circle? And security didn't do anything. The same exact security guards who I had witnessed toes in a circle were a problem, but in the middle of a conflict, they'll allow someone to be intimidating with their belongings. Arbitrary enforcement of all of these rules, no light hand. Another problem. So toes in a circle are a problem. Another street performer I'm aware of, one of the only ones who's actually been cited and ticketed that I'm aware of. Performing. There's a type of performance that a person in a wheelchair cannot get up into the circle with them. This performer accommodated the disabled woman. They stepped outside their circle and they posed with the woman in a wheelchair. They got back on into their circle. Security was called, the marshals were called. They checked the videotape, confirmed that he'd been outside the circle, and he was cited. He was threatened with arrest. My question to you is the official policy that we are not to accommodate the disabled? Like, is the answer to the next disabled person who wants a balloon or who wants a picture with me but can't, I would have to exit my circle? I'm to tell them, no, the city of Las Vegas doesn't allow me under threat of arrest to accommodate you, sir. It's ridiculous. I mean, I understand if our original point was, oh, we're all too close together, these circles, we need to separate us. Then okay, separate us, we're separated. Now it's inches, now it's millimeters, now it's you posed with an individual in a wheelchair. Under threat of arrest. Under threat of arrest, sir. What's the response to that? Where's the city of Las Vegas' official policy on whether I may exit my circle to pose with an individual in a wheelchair?
You want me to answer?
I do.
They have no right to be in your circle, and you have no right to be out of it. It doesn't matter if they're handicapped or not.
So we're denying the enjoyment of the performance to an individual if they are stuck in a chair.
I am not going to debate with you.
I'm not trying to debate. I'm surprised at your answer.
I told you the policy is on circles. I've got your note, and it's going to be in my report. And I will
Okay.
tell us to the council.
Excellent. All right, as long as it's going to be addressed, because I do feel like that's an issue. I do wish to
promise you,
perform
I'm
for.
having-
That's who I like
speaking for my
performing for
health,
best.
okay?
Makes me feel best to perform for individuals with disabilities. That makes me feel best. And if I have to turn them away or be threatened with arrest, that puts me in an awful spot.
All I'm telling you is what the law is today. One of the things the council is going to be doing on the 3rd, so keep this in mind as you make your comments. If there is going to be adjustments to this law, and this may be something that was not thought of, and maybe somebody will say, there is this, there is this, there is this, and they may make changes based on these comments. But I want you to get your comments in and not have that debate with me.
Yes, sir. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize for directing that at you personally.
But I will-
And your answer surprised me. That's why I started the debate. I apologize.
I'll tell you this, when you're all done, I've not only got my notes, but I will go back and play this tape because we're recording this right now. This is streaming live on the internet as I speak, but we have this, and so I will review it, make sure I've got everybody's comments, I'll double check, and I'll make sure it's in my report. And I know darn well that when I'm up there, if I miss something, you're going to be right behind me. Okay.
It's difficult to disseminate all this information. This is months of experience that I'm trying to boil down into a sentence that makes sense to you.
I will ask you all too, if you agree with this, you don't have to repeat it. I got it. If there's something new that you have to add to it, that's fine. I'm not going to try and limit you, but just, we want to give everybody a chance to speak. So please.
It's not a prevalent problem yet that I've seen, but I've witnessed it, the selling of circles. Individuals who you would otherwise classify as homeless, they go down to the booth, they sign up for a number. If they happen to roll a prime spot, they stand in it. And when they see a performer go by, it's like, $10. And I mean, in the summer, the going rate will probably be a lot higher. So that's an issue, and I don't see how more rules is going to fix that one either. An issue that we've had, which is again why I've had to stop performing and basically work security with her, is that there are a large number of, for lack of a better word, creeps down at Fremont. There are predator types, individuals who you can tell that you should go away from, and they gravitate towards pretty girls. It is very, very common for Heather to get these creeps hanging out, staring at her for hours at a time, leering, coming up, insisting on talking, trying to touch her. We're confined to the circle. Our strategy before was very easy because we could work anywhere. Our making balloons in a mobile costume can be done anywhere. So when the creepy guy's there, we went over there. When the creepy guy was here, we went there. Now we're just not afforded
Just ask
that.
for clarification, to use your term, if a creepy guy stepped into her circle, has that happened?
Yes.
Yes.
Have you contacted security?
Leave my circle to contact security. When I get back, someone's doing magic in it.
They come by 5 or 10 minutes later.
Sir, not true. Not true. The only surefire way I've found to get security is to start flagrantly breaking a rule. That's the only thing that will make them show up. Like if I need security over a circle dispute, I perform outside the circle. It's the only thing that makes them show up. I'm sorry. I seem exasperated because we live this. This is our life every night. Is these inconsistencies, these sane words from you, and then enforcement that doesn't seem in accordance with what you've said.
Amen.
All security, it takes them 30 minutes to get there, and then another 15 for the marshal. That's 45 minutes of my 2 hours wasted. Arguing over
To repeat what she just said.
I hear it, but the people recording this don't hear it, okay?
To repeat what she said, when we do have a dispute over a spot, we attempt to contact security. Security takes in the neighborhood of a half an hour to show up. Security generally can't resolve anything, so the marshals are then called. The marshals take only about 15 minutes to show up. They're quick. But now we're talking about, even if the problem is instantly resolved, 45 minutes of our 2-hour performance slot is taken up by
45 minutes.
arguing with someone, and oftentimes intimidating things like blowing smoke in people's faces, a common tactic because there's no law against it. A very common way for a street performer to try to intimidate her is to stand too close and blow cigarette or cigar smoke in her face. Because what can you do about it? Nothing. It's the air. Almost done.
Causes you trauma when you're trying to perform.
One problem that I have is the Chippendales. Love those guys. They're great. They are the spirit of Vegas. They're in barely any clothes, and they're posing with women, and those women are tipping them, and those women are buying pictures. However, they pay rent. They're there as an official business. Where's the line? They exit the area that they are in. They enter the crowd. They entice. They cajole. They draw. Why are they allowed to exit their area and cajole the crowd where we are not permitted to? Is it literally because they pay rent that they're allowed to exit the area they pay rent for? And again, we'll ruin Vegas if you take every one of these suggestions that I make and your thoughts are, well, I have an idea for 3 rules to fix that. We'll stifle Vegas. The people don't come here because as the professional performers get pushed out, as the professional performers can no longer make their living and it's no longer fun to perform, they go to greener pastures. The people who live up and down Fremont Street and are going to live there and they're just going to stay there, they're always going to be there. They're people who lack options. No one visits Las Vegas to see people who lack options, to see desperate people desperately trying to come up with something that'll work, because you can feel the difference between that and someone who performs because they love it. And if you walk that street, you'll see the people who perform because they love it are thinning and thinning and thinning, and the people are popping up. The vacuum is being filled. For every professional balloon artist that I've seen there for 3 years making amazing, elaborate sculptures who disappears and I never see, yeah, somebody pops up with a backpack and a bunch of balloons, but it's not the same, and it's not making Fremont Street a better place. It's not the street I love. And one final thing. I know it's completely protected. My question is just why it differs from what we're doing. I have more pictures of it. Individuals talking about Jesus. They came down, and there was many of them, and they blocked.
Wait till you get to
Intentionally blocked.
the entire street.
Completely across the street there in front of the hotel. Completely preempting 2 spots. Spots 10 and 11, I think they are, off memory. We were in spot 10. These people came up with hate speech. I love people that are like, the love of Jesus, but these people came up, signs and verbal hate speech against gender, against sexuality, talking things I won't repeat. Said to her, "What are you doing down here? Enticing the children, bringing them into sin?" Intimidated us out of the spot. We had to leave our spot because they were standing there being intimidated. Not only that, screaming in megaphones, taking pictures with people, and accepting monetary donations for their cause. I witnessed it. Standing there, and people that come up that agree, people that think that it's awesome to scream mean things in a megaphone, we're giving them money. So my question is I just don't understand why we're 2 separate classes of people. They can stand anywhere they want. They can scream anything they want. They can take money for it. If I stand in a different place and, in fact, deliver a message that's a lot nicer, free balloons for your kids. Half the balloons we give out we do not receive tips for. That's why we don't make a lot of money down there. It's because our overhead's really low. There's a ton of locals down there. There's a ton of poor families. There's a ton of homeless shelter children that come, and we gladly serve them. That's part of our gig. It really is like fun for us to serve. And normally the tips of people who can tip even it out, and it make it okay that we're outpouring this to it no longer works. The poor kids still show up. Their parents, we see the same families every single weekend, and they know where to find us. Spot 35, it doesn't bother them any. But the public, the people that through their money allow us to be there, there's a disconnect now with the circle system. And that's what's wrong with a narrow interpretation like that. If Cirque du Soleil started as street performers, if you'd told 8 people to dance and do acrobatic maneuvers in a 6-foot circle, you'd have stifled them right here. Thank God that they were in Toronto and not here, or there would be no Cirque du Soleil. Amen. Because you can't, some acts just cannot be done in 6 feet. They cannot be done. Yeah. And so you stifle them. They can't change their act to something else. You simply stifle their speech.
That one I got.
Gotcha. Might just be done. Sorry, guys. I've taken a while. I apologize.
You know what? I appreciate this because you're covering a lot of stuff that I was going to say, so it's fine.
That's awesome. And, there was one point that another individual asked me to bring up. They feel safe under all the spots that are under the lighted canopy. Spots 1 through 21. They feel like there's some semblance of security there. There's lights of security. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, there was an armed robbery right in front of Walgreens, basically on spot 22 on Friday. A woman was robbed at gunpoint and then beaten with a gun, I heard. But anyway, we'll as an aside, those areas are dark. Those areas are less secure. Their security makes the rounds down to those spots a lot less often. It's not really a safe place for a girl who may be in a skimpy outfit or may have a $1,200 violin. It's not those spots are not the same as the spots that are secure and underneath the canopy where she, at least a stranger, could protect her if someone decided to victimize her. Not alone, where literally you and the criminal would be the only people present.
He said no people stepping into your circle, people taking photos.
Oh yeah. How do we clarify for me? No one's allowed to enter the circle, so how do I take a picture? Say I'm dressed as Santa Claus. If I may not exit and they may not enter, how is it possible for us to take a picture? Because that's not how that's being enforced now, and how could it be?
Right. Well, first of all, we can talk about enforcement from and I'll answer your question as well. One, we may have different versions of heavy-handed, and it may look different to the person getting the warning versus the person getting the citation. 2 citations have been issued in 2 months. That's it. And when I said we're not going to be heavy-handed, we wanted to go out and warn and teach and learn, to be honest with you. I've learned a lot from the beginning of this. There were things that have happened on the street we didn't anticipate when the ordinance unrolled. I'll be perfectly honest with you. And so we have been warning, and that we have thought has been our way of not being heavy-handed. If you think that that is being heavy-handed, I respect it. But I'm just saying we have resisted issuing citations because everybody's learning. The circles, being in them or being out of them. I think that's a very good topic for conversation, and it may well be adjusted. But the scenario that we were dealing with wasn't an individual coming over and taking a picture, which we could imagine them being on one side and you being right there and getting a picture. What we imagined was people inviting people into the circle to perform with them. We had that suggestion. We had others that wanted to have audience participation with them. I watched The Magicians, for example. There's a lot of hand contact with
you need to have as a magician, you would require someone to enter your circle and touch your stuff and take things from your hand that weren't money.
I get it. And so I understand what we have seen. The problem hasn't been, to be honest with you, I don't think there's a problem in making an adjustment for some of the things that you have suggested. The problem has been we have seen people, it's a toe, it's a foot, it's a leg, it's suddenly 10 pieces of equipment, and it's all over the place. And that's not what the law provides. And so there probably has been, maybe stricter than it needs to be in the future, enforcement by the police, because there have been people, and literally it's the old saying, give an inch and take a mile. And we've seen people do that. We've seen people hop outside their circles. We've seen people grab people who are walking by their circles. We've seen people remove articles of clothing from people who walk by their circles. We've seen people with these fake whips that, they want to get the attention of somebody.
It seems like you're describing assault, and that those people
That's
could be exactly. So we don't need to change the circle rules. Those individuals should be arrested for battery. I never whip anybody, not once. I shouldn't be punished for those that do.
Here's the problem. I know that, And I have told the police that, and the police have reported back to me a couple of things. One, these are tourists generally, and they don't want to get involved with filing a crime report. And if I don't have a victim, I don't have a crime. Second, if they do file a crime report, and they're from out of town, they have to come back on their dime because we don't fly witnesses in for misdemeanors. So we're unable to prove these cases. That's the problem. I'm just being honest with you. Give the answer.
So it's very difficult. Your job is hard. Enforcing any of those rules is very hard, and I don't envy it. But it's just to make the shackles heavier and heavier to make your job easier is not the American way. You know, that's not like a line is easy to enforce, but that's not what freedom of speech is about.
I've got all your comments, and believe me, I will include them in my report. And like I say, if there are going to be changes, your comments on the circles and the ability to move slightly in or out of them, I think is a valid concern. And I respect it.
Because you'll see, like with the dancers in question, the crowd watching them will be 100 feet across. And there'll be a giant gap of space and them dancing on a postage stamp. And it's just silly, like for them not to be able to take up the space that the crowd is naturally affording them, that is not being used for any other purpose, that no one could muscle through that crowd to try to get across it. They're so interested in watching this guy dance.
Do you have anything else to
One final remark to all my fellow street performers, those that like this performance. I'm not your enemy, I'm sorry. I know some of you like it and some of you don't. That's how injustice works. The few benefit at the expense of the rest. It's some of you are going to do better, but a lot are stifled and are gone because of it.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. By the way, before Michael speaks, I just want you all know that if there is something you thought of after you leave the meeting, you can email me, you can send me a letter, you can get it to me as long as it's before the 3rd of February. Go ahead, Michael.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. As you know, I'm the president of the union, and I'm also rank and file performer. Now, just my own ethics, I won't get in a circle. I'll leave in the times because I feel that's hypocritical just in my own personal constitution. However, it's here right now until the courts overturn it, which it will be overturned in one way or another. So I'm trying to do my best and keep my emotions at bay and make this work. One of the reasons that I got up is Justin brought up it's Justin, right? Jared, I'm sorry. Brought up the issue of people bullying them out of their space, and then I got the idea we have this wonderful resource, this overhead projector that's there, that's only on 8 to 10 minutes during those shows. Now, like Carl, Safe Sax guy, he has his little image posted above him while he's performing. It wouldn't be any trouble, the technology's there, somebody could program it in, the circles above. And you could put a photograph of the person that is the performer in that circle with the number. And what would happen there is it would also give promotion to that performer. It would say, your balloons are going to be in section I. And you look up, security, the marshals, the public, the performers arguing, could look up and see, oh, that's who's supposed to be there. The balloon people are supposed to be there. And it could switch on times. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing, just something directly above in the overhead projection. But I can't tell Fremont Street to do that, but the city could talk to them about it because you have a management agreement and instruct them, this will help facilitate who gets the circles, eliminate the ban hours of the police, the marshals, and the security of debating this. Also, it would reduce conflicts because if you look straight up and, performer A is supposed to be here, that would end it. It would also help promote the thing, help legitimize the street performers out there, because we all have a symbiotic relationship with the casinos, the experience and everything. It's not any one thing that brings the tourists down there, it's the whole thing. And we really need to be able to work this out. We get emotional, I get emotional, we polarize. Right now I see about 7 factions in here with 7 different agendas. And what needs to happen is I make jokes. I have a comedy Facebook that pokes fun at you guys because that's how I vent on this. I have the legal one that has a serious thing. However, but until we can sit down and really respect people, and the council doesn't hide behind this and have you insulating them, and the city's over here, everybody just needs to get around one big table and say, let's hash this out and do it. It might take a week, might take 2 weeks. I've suggested a contract before, a memorandum of understanding, agreement amongst the people. Okay, this is how it's going to work. And I got to tell you right now, the idea of having it high profile for the tourists to see with the little circle would lift us up out of being a because we're treated like a second-class citizens out here.
Amen.
And we're not street performers, we're public performers, exercising the First Amendment.
Amen.
And it would bring it into balance, and it also, the public would go, look, rather than cities arguing like the Bundy people and the federal government, all this division in the country, just like all the presidential candidates, none of them are trying to unite Americans, whether they're on the left or right. They're polarized. If we all pull together and we're not going to agree on everything, but we agree on what we can, it evens out. The tourists come in, money spent, everybody wins, and then we're not under this undue economic hardship, because that's what it is. The hours that I perform have been reduced to basically 3 hours a day. That's a personal choice of mine. I'm not going to get in the circle. I've preached against it. I said it's unconstitutional. And if I go in for my own personal gain, then I'm a hypocrite. I'm not a perfect person. I got my faults, but that's where I stand my ground. I'm not a greedy man, or I'd be in the courts right now suing everybody involved. I want to see this resolved. I want to see balance. I want to see agreements. I want to see the city council and the street performers, you, the sheriffs, the marshals, all one day doing a press release saying, we figured this damn thing out, and we're all going to win. Come on down to Fremont Street and have a great time. And that's what I want to see. And I'm willing to do anything I can to do it. And, you know, what do you think about the overhead projection? Could that be a possible solution to help the problem?
One is, I don't know. Two, I can't order them to do it, but I can tell you Fremont Street Experience is here today. I'm not going to point out the individual who represents them. I have a meeting with them coming up as well, and I will put that on the table.
Yeah, I mean, let's you know, we can't change the past right now. Let's get down to doing business and make this work for everybody.
As I hear all of your suggestions, and I respect that, Michael,
Yes.
I don't know, as you said early on, there's something you and I absolutely agree on. There are 7 different factions here, maybe
Yes.
50, I don't know, and nobody agrees. And that puts, and believe it or not, this is difficult when you're in government, and you're trying to do exactly what you said. There isn't, Captain Walsh is sitting out there, and Lieutenant Barney sitting out there, and they know they want the same thing. They want the public to be safe. They want you to enjoy your constitutional right to express your speech through your performances. They want no fighting. They want it to be a violence-free atmosphere. And everybody looks at this, and it's like, you know, there was a joke a long time ago, that individuals couldn't see, grab an elephant. Somebody grabs a leg, and they think it's a tree. Somebody grabs a trunk, and they think it's a hose. Everybody who's a performer kind of looks at this differently based on your perspective, what part you're doing, even what kind of act that you have.
Well,
and it all comes down to this funnel we call City Hall. And we are at the end of the funnel. And we've got to take all that information, all the information you're giving me today, and I'm just one person,
Yeah.
and I'll put it in a report, and I will give it verbally, and you'll hear it, and I'll give it to the council, and there may be more stuff that comes out of it. But ultimately, those conflicting ideas are going to have to come out in some form, because as we said before, doing nothing is not an option. And so it does mean that unless, I mean, anybody who's here, you've got to be smarter than me when it comes to this stuff. It is literally impossible to meet a middle ground that somebody doesn't find a major fault with. And there's an old saying, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And we know that. We know there is no way, and I'll even stale in front of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals when they say, what about this, what about this? And I'll say, Judge, if you expect that we have adopted a perfect ordinance, then throw it out right now. There is no such thing. But you have to do the optimal, trying to balance the rights versus the safety. And so with that said, I respect what you're saying.
Let me add to that. The problem is we have other players involved, and I'm trying my best not to say anything inflammatory. The casinos have the money. They have the will not to have us there because they do feel that we encumber their business. They don't respect our First Amendment rights. They treat us as a second or third class citizen, and we need them at the table along with the city council, along with representatives of all the performers, along with law enforcement. We need us all to sit down and just have a meeting of maybe 10 or 15 people and hash it out. Because if they don't agree and we all agree, the big money is going to keep this rolling as it is. And that's the fact on it. I've talked to some of these casino owners. They don't want us there. They think that's their dollar going in a tip jar.
Again, if we could, I appreciate what you're saying.
Let's have a meeting and get this done.
I do want to say, and I'll bring it up.
All the players got to be there.
I want to go back to the ordinance problems that you have. That's what I'm here to
Well, the problem, and the one thing we should all agree on as Americans is the Constitution. All amendments should be enforced above all. It's the supreme law of the land. I've taken oaths to support the Constitution. I assume you have. I know law enforcement has. And we should support and defend the Constitution, especially when we're under attack by outside terrorist forces and domestic terrorist forces that want no middle class and the top and the bottom. And this undue economic hardship on us, many of these performers have lost their places to live, have to move out of town in the last 2 weeks because they can't sustain themselves, whereas prior to the ordinance they could, even though there was some confusion. And there's all the jobs that come into Las Vegas and everything don't mean anything if they pay minimum wage. But if we're allowed to work out and we do an honest performance where we're not too restrained, we can make a living. And it's honest. If you entertain somebody and they walk by, there's no way to put a minimum wage on what we do because you can't quantify it. You can't measure it. But if you give somebody an emotional experience where they're amused or entertained and they want to impart something of value to you, that's a wonderful thing. That person has the endorphins going, the emotions and everything. Then they walk into a casino. They buy more things because they're in a good mood, front to back. And what we do doesn't really fit anywhere in the law. The Department of Labor can't really define us, and what we do is special. I can go out and get trained and do a regular job, but not every person can suddenly become a street performer. It's something that you have naturally, and you mold it, you grow it, and it works in a thing. And we don't really fit in all places of society. That's why we're here for whatever reason. That's why we do this. I never assumed I'd wind up doing this. I just fell into it one day, and it worked. And I'm like, if it works, don't try to fix it, And that's what's so frustrating about it. And it's an artistical thing. It's not mechanical, And that's what the people are tipping us for, is because we have something of value that they can't get anywhere else, and it can't be duplicated. And I'm sorry to talk so much, but it's just I want to do business. I want to get this thing done, and we can get back to performing properly. So.
Thank you, Michael.
Round of applause. Come on, give it up. Let me speak. Right, here we go. Let me speak. Right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, law enforcement, Attorney Jerbick. My name is Scarlett Ray Watt. I'm a professional comedy ventriloquist. I grew up in England on the BBC. I played all over the world, New York, LA, Miami, all over the world. Let me get to the point. Attorney Jerbick, your new ordinance has totally, in my humble opinion, ripped the heart out of Fremont Street. Now, I performed on Bourbon Street, Royal, Decatur, Café du Monde, Venice Beach, Santa Monica. I know about street performance. What you've created with this farcical, embarrassing ordinance, once again, I'm here again, looking you eye to eye, it is beyond disgraceful what you've created, and the Lady Mayor. It is beyond farcical. Now, when you look at it and you break it down, let's be real here, man to man, mano mano, right? Here's the thing about the whole situation. If I want to buy flowers, I go to Home Depot. I go to the garden centre. The spots now, you've ripped the performing art out of that place. 42 years ago, I held a microphone for the first time. Performed in front of Lady Diana and Prince Charles, where you stand there. And you come out here, I've been out there for the last month, 6 weeks working, seen you once. You come up here, nice tie, you speak before everybody, like the second coming of Christ, but you don't go on the floor with the real people. Now, I was raised in a country Margaret Thatcher came from. We've lost a tremendous icon, David Bowie, who died yesterday. An amazing icon, who was iconic. That's where the arts come from. And as I respect you as a lawyer, and you're a prominent, eminent lawyer, and I respect you for that, but I know about performance. That's my job. When you start pulling back and twitching and pulling back for what I can do, Houston, we have a problem. That's the situation. And we can all come out here. I've spoken to Captain Anderson, Lieutenant Fagel, law enforcement, amazing. Without them, what are we? They only follow the law. They're out there because this is the law. This is what we have to follow. Can't we all get along? Didn't Rodney King say that? At the end of the day, we've all got to settle and work together. That's what it's going to come down to. It's not what I think. I don't have a lottery on what should be said and what shouldn't be said. My opinion's not more important than his, hers, whatever. I'm just a player in this game, right? What you get down there, magician after magician doing the same tricks. They've stitched it up because they had the meeting, and we all know Behind closed doors, it's being done. It's a sweet little deal. The press won't say anything. The last speech I made here about Black Lives Matters. Buskers' livelihoods matter. Front page of the Las Vegas Review-Journal. They didn't even put me on. They cut it out. I had the journalist in front of me telling me, Scarlett, I couldn't print it. The editor said I couldn't print it. This is how stitched up this is. I've headlined in New York, The Laugh Factory, Stand Up New York. And the media, especially here, it's a fix, it's in. But I don't care, because I'm not looking at anything. I don't care if I pick a microphone up again. I've got money. I don't need to be here. But be honest and be real with the people. Be honest and be real. That's what you need to do. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day and Happy New Year 2006. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Good afternoon. My name is Clyde Williams. I'm the gentleman who plays the steel drums out there. First of all, I'd like to extend my gratitude for inviting all of us here to participate in your attempt to have a system that would facilitate all performers and the arts on the Fremont Street. Now, I do look around and see a few performers in here. However, like Michael said, there isn't much people here from the business sector. And their input will be important also because everything is relative out there. The performers, the audiences, and the businesses. Now, what I'd like to address is my friend over here who said a lot of things that I agree with, also said that there's some spots that supposedly is in an unsafe zone. Well, that so-called unsafe zone is my zone. That's my preferred zone. So please don't remove the spots or assign the whole zone to me. I don't mind. You know, I will take the block.
One man's junk is another man's treasure, right?
Right,
Everybody looks at things a different way. And I
right.
That.
So, and no.
He's not a victim. No one's going to look at him and think, yeah, I'm going to victimize this guy.
Right. Okay. No.
Well, let me say this. You make a good observation. One of the things I said early on, and I'd like your input on it. If in the future it doesn't end up all the way that you want, but part of the way you want, do you think having this ability to prefer spots in the lottery will help? Because you sound like you would prefer one of those spots that you wouldn't prefer.
I didn't address that, but yeah, having the lottery be able to
See,
select spots makes a lot of sense.
see what you have to look at it from different perspective. You're looking at it from a political perspective. The police, law enforcement will look at it from a legal perspective. We will look at it from an entertainer's perspective. And all those perspectives have to form a circle, or supposed to form a circle, not a bunch of lines going in different directions. See? Now, what I would suggest, one main thing I would suggest, the time limit. 2 hours is not enough to really put a good professional act, you know. Not for me. I mean, I can play for 4 hours easy. I played in one restaurant, in front of one restaurant for 9 hours, and they managed to come out and say, 9 hours? 9 hours? Jeez, I'm not into the slavery thing. I mean, I am a slavery thing. I'm accustomed to working from sun up to sundown. 9 hours, that's part-time. Okay, I'm an international street performer. Every penny I spend out here is a lifestyle that I have to afford to be able to be in Vegas to entertain the people. I go to Japan, I have to do the same thing. Expenses are high. So I have to work. I can't come out here, work for 2-3 hours, go have a meal, go in the casino and sit down for 8, and come back and do that again. No, I come out here and work for 12 and go home and sleep for 4 and come back and do it again. I prefer that schedule. So I would really like a consideration of the time limit from 2 hours to at least 3 hours. You know, or you can. I was also suggesting that you can look at your acts that you have there and segregate the acts. You got to have common sense. The Constitution is great. It's not a cookie-cutter system. That's why there's so many amendments. It has to be looked at it for specific applications. You know. So I love that approach. You started a great system. Got to start somewhere. But it's not a final, and it's far from being finite.
A lot of you heard me, let me interject for a moment. We don't have any strong opinion about the time limits, whether it's an hour or it's all night. We don't have a strong opinion about that. 2 hours was picked.
Well, I've worked with the city of Santa Monica, with the Bayside Business District. I've worked with the City of Pasadena in implementing and designing street performance system programs like this. Okay? Now, one of the main concerns with time limits is for the businesses, because the businesses don't want to hear Star Spangled Banner 24 hours a day. Or the businesses don't want to hear Stairway to Heaven 24 hours a day. That's the main thing, because the tourists, our entertainers, the people we entertain in our audience, they don't stay there for more than some of mine, I can catch someone for half an hour or something, but that's not typical. Most of them might stay 5 minutes and they go. So they don't care if we play it 24 hours a day. It's the businesses. So the time limits, the factor of the time limits is mainly for the businesses. So that's why the input of the businesses is also so important when you're going to design something like this. Because it's massive. Like my brother here says, right now it's February, it's January, right? It's nothing. You got to perfect this thing before May. March Madness, as a matter of March Madness, you got to have this perfected by then.
I think I can say that we are all in complete agreement that the crowds are unusually low right now, and they're going to grow geometrically between now and summertime.
Of
we
course.
know that.
Yeah, but it's not.
I understand that. I completely understand that.
It's not about the crowd right now. It's about your system that you're trying to implement.
And that's why I'm here, is to hear your comments about this system that's been in place for 2 months. You've addressed the time limits. Is there anything else that hasn't been addressed already that you would like to address?
Well, the segregation of I think it might be a unconstitutional issue, I'm not sure, but you got to have acts that has with a dB level and acts that doesn't have a dB level. Because if I play in steel drums and you put me in front of stage D, it don't even make no sense for me. But you can put a Hello Kitty there, that's no problem. So I mean that kind of common sense can be applied, I think.
I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming. Hey, 1 minute before you get back up.
Just one addition. It was 2 seconds.
We
Okay.
really need to be fair and give
No
everybody else a
problem,
chance to speak, and then I'll circle back. And I'm sorry, there's a microphone over here, so if anybody wants to get to speak. Adam, thanks for coming.
Thank you. My name is Adam Flowers. I'm a street performer on Fremont Street, and I'm also the president of SPAN, Street Performers and Artists of Nevada. We have, first, thanks everybody who spoke and all of your comments, all of your thoughts, because it's important to me to know what everybody's thinking. And I've talked with the members of SPAN. I've also talked with other street performers. I've walked around and asked people, what do you guys think of this so far? Because I had a lot of input in this. And the city came to SPAN, and Fremont Street representatives also came to us and asked us, what are your thoughts on this whole system, and how can we make the street look better, be more attractive to tourists, to draw people down there? I don't want to be repetitive of anything that was already talked about, but the ability to select spots in the lottery, I think is a great idea for the same reasons that some of you have said, and that is you can't be heard when you're in front of a stage if you have a vocal act. I've also talked to entertainers who say that they like being in front of the stage, perhaps somebody who is a character. They're in front of a crowd, they're seen, they enjoy those spots in front of a stage. They don't care that it's loud. The creation of these spots and opening up the street, and we were concerned that you would keep the spots closed down, that 100-foot rule. But so far, there's only been a couple of occasions that those spots were closed down because of a major event. But for the most part, a year ago, we were all crammed within a 1-block area in the middle of the street and another block at the end of the street. Now, all 5 blocks are open. People are spread out, and aesthetically, the street looks much better. Tourists say they do. Other performers say this is good. I've heard from characters, they say that they make more money because they don't have other characters around them and they stand out. So the ability to select spots, to be able to put down in a preference in the programming of the website of maybe, you know, a preference of if these are my first 5 spots that I prefer, these are the second 5 spots, and these are the third 5 spots. And somehow the computer program could identify that these spots are your first preference for each time slot that you choose. Maybe even the ability to choose different spots for different time slots. I don't know how extensive it would be to make something like that happen, but I know that the ability and the technology is there. It's just the resources and the time to program something like that, I'm sure, would be what you would have to consider. You said that is something you're working on. Can I ask, when do you think something like this would come about?
Oh, let me introduce you to, I'm going to put her on the spot for a moment. Mary McLemore is the Director of Business Licensing, and she has been working closely with IT in developing this, and she has been wonderful, and I don't think we could have been as far as we are without her. So, Mary, any idea?
Basically, right now we're working with the programmer. We're planning on having an update, and there'll be several things with the system, but one of them that we do plan on doing is to allow people to have preferred spots, but we haven't really defined that yet, and it's kind of interesting sitting here and listening to some of you today because some of you have some different ideas. So we're probably going to have another conversation or perhaps a survey to see what people would prefer. So there's the letters, which are the actual stages, and it sounds like some of you don't want to be near the stages. And so the question we would ask is if you could opt in for preferred spots, is it better to say, I don't want the letters, or I do want the letters, or is it better to, like you just recommended, where you get an option of 5 preferred spaces? And then the question then is, so if you don't get your options, let's say the lottery runs, and you're selected to be in the lottery, you're going to get a spot, but you're one of the last people selected. So your preferred spots are not available, or the only thing left is letters, and you prefer numbers. Should the lottery pass you over at that point in time? So we have questions that we have to answer so that the programmer knows how he should program this. And so listening to a lot of you today, you have a lot of different opinions of how the preferred selection should work.
Let me, by the way, kind of introduce you to our city team here. This is, you know, you see me a lot, and certainly at the meetings. This has really taken a lot of effort. A lot of you have seen Mary on the street. You have seen Keith. He worked the booth when it first opened, and you've seen him on the street. And on the other side of Mary is Ryan, who was running the booth after the first couple of weeks we were underway. And now we have a new fellow who's out there right now as we speak named Sean. And so there's an awful lot of city people. We have a whole IT department that's been working on the computer programs. So your comments are important, but it's also important if you agree with something. I do need to hear that too, because again, this is the funnel. I got to take all of this and somehow put it together into something. And so if you do agree with something, please say that as well. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Adam.
No, that's fine. That answers a question, and this is just my opinion. I have not talked with other people about it, but if the spot was able to, if you were able to select like a first, second, and third preference. So if you didn't get any of your first, then maybe you would get the second. If you didn't get the second, you would be in for the third, something like that for each hour. And I don't think that it's a matter of being in front of a stage versus not being in front of a stage. There's also other areas where spots are in the middle of a street, or middle of the walkway. Perhaps a character, a group of characters does well right in the center because they aren't building a large crowd and impeding the walkway with a crowd, whereas somebody who is building a crowd would impede it, or maybe they have a lot of equipment so they aren't easily to move out of the way of people walking by because where those spots are located. My notes straight here. Open spots, you said, right now, if you're lotteried, let's just call it lotteried for a spot, and you get onto the schedule. Say I'm scheduled in spot 15, and it's not a good location. So I've lotteried with the hopes to get a good spot, but I end up with not good spots. Now I don't have the option to go out and get into an empty spot. Regardless if somebody has been scheduled to it or not. If it's an open spot on the schedule, I still can't go to it because I'm assigned to this spot.
That's correct.
No, that's what you're. That's what I'm at. That's what I'm asking.
Let me
That is how you explained it.
So make sure I understood the question. If you're saying if you're in the lottery and you get a circle, can you elect to leave that circle and move somewhere else?
Correct.
Our answer has been no. Now, if that's been happening, you need to tell me, because we've been telling people you're either in or not. You don't get to trade up.
So
now we're creating real estate, and
right.
that's
Well,
not the goal.
but that's what this is. Because right now, if I don't lottery, this is what I've been doing. I've not been putting into the lottery. I tried it several times. I ended up with spots that didn't work for me, and I went into a spot that changed spots, and I was told that you can't be in that spot because you're assigned to this spot. And I said, well, nobody's in this spot here. It's an open spot. Well, what's the point of that? If I'm not in the lottery, then I can go? That's right. So I didn't put into the lottery, and then I just go out there and move around to open spots. Regardless if somebody is scheduled to them or if somebody is not scheduled to them, it's an open spot. No one's there. Of course, if that person shows up and says, hey, here's my number, I'm supposed to be here, fine, I'll move out, not a problem. But it just doesn't make sense to me that you can't do that. Now, and until something changes, I will probably continue to just bounce around. If there were a preference, if you were able to lottery for certain spots, and I was able to say, these are the spots I want, and I'm guaranteed that now when the lottery comes out, I'll end up with one of those spots, or I will end up without a spot, period. Meaning I'm not on the schedule, now I can go take any open spot. I'm not assigned to a spot that I definitely cannot work. Then I think that would be fine.
We're not opposed to that. I'll tell you what we have thought, and if we're wrong, we're wrong. What you have just described is an old game show called Let's Make a Deal. You've got what's in the box, or you can trade it for what's behind the curtain. The problem is that we have thought, and there's no problem with that. They're all 40 feet apart still, and you're all performing. And that's really the only goal. How you get there really isn't our business. We had to pick a system, and this is what we started with. We're perfectly willing to consider adjusting it. But we have thought through a number of things that we may be wrong about. But one of them is if we create a system like that, we have Let's Make a Deal. Now individuals go to each other and start trading. And it may be a very friendly thing if you know the other performer. Hey, I got this spot, it's better for my act. You got a spot, it's better for your act. That's the perfect world. The imperfect world is, I want $20 for the circle, or bullying, or competing again. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So I have no problem with your system. And it may be much better than what we're doing right now. But that's the downside that we identified. I'm just sharing that with you, because if you think we're wrong or there's a better way to do it, that's what we're here for, to listen.
I understand your point about the trading spots, selling spots. You have a secondary real estate business going on out there if you do. I don't think you understand what I'm saying. What's been created is a let's make a deal type of situation. You either lottery and hope that you get a spot, or you crap out and end up with a spot you can't use, or you take a chance and go out there and move about and hope that you find open spots. That's what's happening right now, you see. So if it was, and again, I don't have a problem with that. I'm going to opt out of lotterying, and I'll just go out there and look for open spots. But I don't want something to be cause that's more restrictive that says you have to be in the lottery to have a spot, something like that. And now whatever spot you get is where you have to be without any choice on the performer's part. Because if that happens, it will make it too restrictive for us.
How many of you think, and I'm not asking you to love the ordinance or tell me that you're in favor, on just this one point, how many of you think it would be better if you could be in the lottery and still move if there were an open spot?
It's kind of how it's being done right now.
No, I understand. Well, I understand.
I mean, does anyone disagree? That's exactly what's happening out there right now. It's not being enforced the way you described.
Like I say, this came up very, very early on in the first 2 weeks, and the decision was not to allow that. Now, if there's been a decision on the ground that it's
not to allow what?
Not to allow an individual that already had an assigned spot to move once you have an assigned spot.
Okay.
But if the decision has been made on the ground to allow that, I've got no problem.
No, we're being told we cannot do that. I don't think you're understanding.
Selectively, we've done it every single night, never been told once. And I'm not saying that's favoritism, it's just not a consistent enforcement.
I think I'm hearing two things here. I'm hearing that, one, you're being told you can't do it, but I am hearing it's going on anyway.
Some of us, it was a long time ago, but early on I asked this question and I was informed by the security officer I talked to that we were permitted to switch spots, and we've simply been doing it since then. It was a real surprise to me when you said it.
Let me ask you a question, and you don't have to answer it now, but this is what I need you to fix for me, and I want your help with it. If we go to the system, and we're perfectly willing to discuss that, absolutely, I need you to help me with the way an officer will be able to identify you now. Because what you're going to have is you're going to have these QR codes, and they're going to say that you have spot number 3. They're going to find you in spot number 10, and they're going to say, and then you're going to have somebody in spot number 3, your old spot.
You have the QR on you. The QR is on you physically in the spot that you are in. You have your own QR, so that's how they'll know. No matter what spot I'm in, I have the QR that identifies me as myself.
Well, I'm just saying that if you're in a lottery, what happens? Have you used the QR readers on these things to see what happens?
Yes.
When I walk by and I hit it, and Tom, if I hit yours and it says that you're in this space number 11 between 5 and 9, and I go by to space number 11, you're not there, somebody else is there, law enforcement will remove them if there's a reason to. Okay. Now, right now,
I've never seen that.
Now we're not doing any of that right now, but I'm saying that was the purpose of protecting your territory with the QR.
Holes.
And we don't know that you've abandoned it.
But that's why the security force on Fremont Street.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's why the Fremont Street security are coming by, updating in their booth who is in that spot. The marshals have access to who's in that spot at the time they go through. Now I'm going to cover it more because I'm not going to take your time away from you on this topic here. But when they put it in the computer, they have it at their booth who is in that spot at that time. If you move, then it should be updated. And there is an answer to some of your guys' questions and your question. There is a way that they have out there to move spots if you're in a less desirable spot at your scheduled time, and I'll cover that when I get to get up and speak.
I'm just going to nod up or down one way or the other. We are doing that or not doing that?
Well, we are doing it if there's a problem.
Okay.
There hasn't been a crowd out there. The crowd has been sparse, so if there's not a problem, we're not fully enforcing it. We're letting these guys perform. Gotcha. In the beginning, we were, because the spots were full. But they've seen the flaw in the system that we're trying to work on.
Fair enough. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm asking questions because I need to, at the end of the day, try to glue this all together. So my apologies.
So as far as where the spots are, where you're assigned to, I think there's a way to work that out. Whereas allowing either if you want a lottery, you get in and you're able to select what spots. If it's your spot, if you get that spot, say I lotteried and I get that spot and I decide I want to leave. It's too cold. It's whatever. I'm tired. I'm going to leave. That spot's open. There should be no reason that somebody else should not be able to go into that spot and that opportunity. Why leave real estate out there, good performing areas open? People should be able to move around regardless if they're lotteried for another spot or if they're not in the lottery at all. They should be able to move around in those spots. If there's the problem, I think, of you said selling, bartering for spots, if that becomes an issue, then I think it would have to be addressed at that point, if performers complained about that happening. But so far, from what I've seen and from what I've heard, people, it seems, and you probably would disagree with me on this, but they say, and from what I've seen, performers tend to be getting along more. When I say a conflict, I heard conflict earlier. Going up to somebody and say, am I in this spot for the next 2 hours? Are you leaving this spot in 20 minutes because no one's on the schedule? Or I look at my phone and say, this number's on the schedule. And it's Batman. Batman's not there right now. So I'm going to use this spot after you. Yeah, talking to people, sure. I've talked to performers that I haven't talked to before. I've gone up to them and communicated with them and actually opened up communication channels between me and other performers that I really didn't talk to before so that we could communicate and say, hey, who's in this spot next? Can I go into it? Whatever. Are you leaving? I'd like to take it. So I've heard that from performers, that that's been working. People say you don't have cell phones out there. I think every day, and I don't know that this is available, but at the marshal's office, put a printer in there, and if somebody comes up and says, hey, I'm here, it's 3 o'clock, what spots are open today? Instead of them saying, oh, it's this, here's the schedule for today. Print one up. Okay, perfect. So there's a way to get the schedule if it wasn't. I don't know. I've never gone over and looked for it. I just pull it up and look. So that's something. The conflicts, and I don't know if the marshals would agree with me or not, but the performers who do have a problem, hey, somebody's coming up and saying, this is my spot. What's your number? What's your, you're telling me this is it, maybe trying to push you out of a spot. Why don't we have a line, a cell phone line dedicated to the marshals for the street performers to call if there's a problem? If they're experiencing a problem at the east end of the street or at the west end of the street, why not have a phone for the marshals?
Fremont Street Experience has a cell phone dedicated for the supervisor.
Fremont Street Experience, the marshals.
Well, they work with the marshal. But if you go up to the booth, they can give you that number. All you have to do is send them a text, what space you're in, they show up like
This is something I see. This has been out for, 3 months? I'm not aware of it. I don't know. Other people are sitting here going, I'm not aware of this either. So it's not something that we've been even made aware of. So maybe that's something that all the street performers should be made aware of, and maybe that would help. I've gotten contradictions from the marshals and the Fremont Street Security. This was something that was brought up when we put this ordinance together. When we discussed this, and our attorney talked about it, Fremont Street Experience, the blue shirt busking security, they work for Fremont Street. They're out there to observe, to go out, run their QR code. Hey, if they see something going on, a fight, something like that, of course, report it to the marshals. The end-all, say-all authority out there is a city official, the marshals. That's what their job is. That's what they're brought in here for. Fremont Street Security in the past years has had a terrible reputation for making things up as they go, changing the rules. We talked about that, and we said we wanted somebody with a little more authority, and we're still seeing Fremont Street Security out there more or less coming up and trying to flex their authority to us over minor things like your toes are in the circle, or hey, you guys stepped out of the circle and now another performer came into the circle. You two are working together on the same register. You need to be on the same registration. You're working together. I'm going to give you this example. I don't want to be drawn out and long-winded. But I'm working with another entertainer, helping him. We're out there. The street's empty. We're in a spot. I shouldn't say we're in a spot. I'm in a spot performing. When I finished my act, I usually take a half-hour break in between each, give my voice a rest. I step out of the circle, and he goes in the circle, does his act. I watch him, critique him. We're working together, helping one another. I'm helping him in the way of critiquing his show, okay? And he's helping me in the way of videotaping me so I can critique mine. The busking security comes up and says, you two are reserving this spot for one another. Reserving it for one another. How are we reserving? Now, they brought the marshals over and said, well, you're in it holding it for this guy, and then he's in it holding it for you. So, to do that, you need to forfeit your registration and create a second registration of the two of you on the registration together. No. We are not performing at the same time in the circle. If we're in the circle together performing, yes, we need to be on the same registration. But if I go into an open circle, and then I vacate the circle, and somebody else goes into it, they're performing solo, and I'm performing solo. Regardless of if he's using my table, or using my speaker, or borrowing my cups, or something. You can't tell me who I can and can't. I want
to fix this. Number one, I want to fix
Go
this.
ahead.
Two, I want to tell you why they're doing it. I'm not saying it's the best way, but here's the confusion that we had. We had individuals that came up and they at the booth who would come and register in person, and they would say, I am with this person sometimes, and sometimes I'm with this person, and sometimes I'm alone. And our advice was,
Performing together, correct?
yeah, and our advice was if you want to all be together at any point in time, 2 or more together, register as a group, because a group can be a group of 1. And so that's probably what they're seeing, Adam, and they just don't know what they're seeing. When they look at 2 people, they're probably thinking you're either a group or you're 2 individuals, and if it's 2 individuals, you don't share a circle back and forth like that. And so we need to fix it. Let's put it that way.
Again, we tried to hash it out right there and explain it, and the marshals agreed that, hey, this is something that needs to kind of be addressed. If there was a third person walked up and said, hey, I would like to be in this circle, you know, you're leaving, by all means. But again, the street there's empty around us. There was nobody else looking to be in that area. It's not like we were trying to, again, reserve it for one another. We were just, quite simply. So I just think that, again, that's kind of petty, what they're looking at, what they're doing. So I'm sorry, though, you were saying something.
I was just going to give you an example real quick to let you know a problem that we had that's exactly what you described, and it looks different when you're on the other side sometimes. We had Michael Jackson performing in front of Walgreen about 2 months ago. And all of a sudden, and he's registered as a single. The QR reader says that's his circle. He drew it in the lottery. He's legitimately there. And all of a sudden, Tupac jumps in. And Tupac says, I have a right to be there. And we hit the QR reader with the thing, and he is registered as a group. And in his group, he's got Michael Jackson. And so now we've got 2 people. Either one should have registered as a group, or one is registered as a group that shouldn't be registered as a group. And so we started trying to sort this out because we want to make sure we're consistent in the way we handle it. And we found out that what Tupac has done is he's identified every performer that does a music style act and listed him on his group. And they don't even know him. And so he jumps into their circles at random. And so we told him, that's it, you know. And we asked Mike, do you know this guy? He said, no, he's not part of my group. You're out of the circle. So that system worked to protect that performer from that person who was poaching. We don't always know. And Michael wasn't going to report the guy. He was kind of a little intimidated with the fact the guy was in there. So what you say is absolutely legitimate, Adam, and we need to fix it. But I'm just saying that we've seen a positive part of it, too, in protecting people who have had spots from individuals who try to use one of your words, bully them out, or just poach it. But either way, I just wanted to share that with you. But go ahead.
So would it be easier in helping to protect yourself whenever you're registering by putting your name down so that you're easily identified other than you're just Michael Jackson, number 2190?
And that's another thing that we'll be discussing. Whether or not we're going to move from anonymous registration to identifiable registration. But I will tell you this, and the ACLU is not here today, they will tell you this. The case law around the country that talks about these kinds of regulatory schemes where individuals register, they support registration with names when you have a lottery or a selection system. If you have a first-come, first-served system, they don't support it. And the ACLU would not support it if we had a first-come, first-served system that demanded names. So as we move more toward more freedom to move, we move toward less justification for named registration. And so that's why we haven't done it right now. But like I said, I don't want to give you too much information. I don't want to take this into my show. This is your time to talk to me. So I'm sorry for interrupting.
I'm not suggesting a mandatory name registration. I'm suggesting that the performers would be protecting their registrations by voluntarily giving their names, or at least a first name. Something they could say, no, I'm Timmy, the Michael Jackson. I'm not, Teddy, the Michael Jackson. So that's just a thought there. The map here on the table is not accurate. It's not the map that is actually the spots are laid out.
You are correct.
So
correct. It's going to be amended. We have it here today. Let you know.
I'm just wondering what I mean, because there's no map available to us. Not that most of. Sure thing, Mary.
Sorry about that. I can answer about the map. So when we took the map and we went down there in November to put these circles out, we found that the map that was actually drafted, when you really get down there and you start measuring, it didn't take into consideration certain seams and manhole covers and things that we actually cannot cover up. So where we ended up placing the circles is slightly different than this map. So we did place the circles. Then we found out we had another problem because of the canopy. The GIS does not come through the satellite. So what we're now working on and what we've been able to accomplish with Public Works' help and with our GIS mapping system, we are in the final phases of finalizing the map. So we're pretty sure we have a map now that's probably within 1 foot of where those circles are actually located, and in the next few weeks it should be updated at the city clerk's office. If some of you need a map, we can have some of those down in the booth for you.
Are you saying that the spots will be moved around themselves?
No, the spots that are there, Bruce, were, as they were identified on the map, we couldn't put them that way when we actually got out there. They are 40 feet.
The spots as they are now, are you saying in the next couple of weeks the spots
They're not going to move.
be shifted?
No, they're not going to move.
No, they're not.
No, the maps
It's
are
just,
reflected.
we place the spots. They do not perfectly line up with this map, and we know that, but we've been working on updating the map. The requirement is that a map be placed at the city clerk's office, and we're in the final phases of that with the holidays and trying to get Public Works down there, and getting accurate satellite measurements has been very difficult for our office.
So the spots are fine, but the map's getting adjusted.
Right, correct. The map is going to be adjusted.
Thank you. The reason I ask is just that some of the members of SPAN have asked, hey, can we see the map? Can we put it on the website? Can we, for other performers that come into town and ask us, come to us and say, how do we go about getting out to the street? We're able to help them out a bit with that. So when the map is up, if we could be notified about that and maybe sent a copy, that would be wonderful. The cameras on Fremont Street that are watching the performers and watching the things that are going on out there, we've been told, well, you mentioned this earlier, saying, well, tourists won't testify against somebody for a misdemeanor offense, so that's why people won't report as far as if somebody's getting hit with a whip or something. Why can't the cameras be used to say, look, this is what went on, here's a video of it?
That's a good question. The legal definition of battery is an unwanted touching. Literally, you pat somebody on the back and they don't want you to do that, technically is a battery. Now, we live in a world where nobody reports that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, the camera doesn't know if it's wanted or unwanted. Someone has to say it.
That answers it. Okay. So somebody has to actually say it, so you can't use that.
May I interrupt for a second on that issue?
Go ahead.
Under the domestic violence laws, even if the tourist didn't want to enforce it, if you have it on camera, the district attorney could enforce that if somebody is actually struck, touched, or on that.
We're talking degrees, I think,
Yes.
of if I see somebody giving the living, heck kicked out of them. Not everybody asks for that, and that looks like something you might be able to prove maybe without them saying it, because that would clearly, the implication is there. But there's a lot of playful stuff that goes on Fremont Street. And that whole, nobody's trying to smack somebody with a whip and leave a permanent mark on them like a batterer would hit a wife or a girlfriend. And so a lot of tourists find it annoying. Some find it playful. Some find it whatever.
Oh, yeah,
Some
there's a
don't
lot of
mind it at
groping
all.
out there.
But I'm just saying that is stuff that it's got to stop.
Well,
I'm just saying, to answer the question, we're only here to answer one question.
Well,
Why can't the cameras fill in? They can't.
Yeah, what I was trying to say is Joe and I were attacked, and several of us have been attacked, but not just a slap, but I mean a full-on punch. And, that happens out there, and then sometimes it never gets reported or it isn't taken seriously because we're performers.
Did you report it?
Yes, we reported. The detectives called us back on it, but we see that happen a lot because some of the tourists are excessively drunk, and they'll attack somebody, and then they'll just walk off.
I understand.
So, I'm sorry, Adam. Go ahead.
Not a problem. So the last point I want to make, and that is the limitations of stepping out of a circle. It says in the ordinance that we have to stay within the 6-foot circle. The circle have helped me in the way of not only highlighting the performer, saying, highlighting, what are these poker chips on the street, right? What are they for? It almost spotlights the performers that are out there in a way. It's also allowed me as a performer to know, and I know this, the closer the people are to me, the more money I'm going to make. The more chance I am to get a tip. When there's 3 deep in the crowd around me, those people in the first 2 rows are locked in. When I finish my show and I'm holding my hat, they can't go anywhere when there's people behind them. When they're spread out, they can't. This is performing 101 here. They cannot leave. Now they feel this moment of reciprocation. I must reach in my pocket and give this guy something. So closer they are, the better it is for the performer. When the crowds first stop on that street, people are hesitant to walk up to the performer. They are. Because you look around on that street, and you do. You see people that aren't in the circles. You see people that are, sitting there with stage 3 cancer, So you're not able to, they don't look approachable, let's just say, some of them. So they're hesitant at first to come up to you. So sometimes stepping towards them and saying, folks, take a few steps in. For that long that I stepped out of the circle, take a few steps in. Not only is it bringing the people in off of the street, and it's keeping them in close to the circle. They're not impeding the walkway. There's got to be a moment where you have to tell the marshals and security, for that matter, look, if a person's foot's in the circle and they're saying, folks, come a little closer, or here, hold on to this for me, or doing something with them, it's not the same as you're doing your entire act outside of the circle, or you're setting up equipment out. There's got to be a difference. And I know that black and white is black and white in the ordinance. That's what it is. So they're going to each interpret it the way they want to interpret it. Maybe there should be some type of rewrite as a restriction someday. Have you thought of this?
I'd like to address that, if you give me just a moment, and I'm going to let you know what I am stuck with. First of all, everything you say is perfectly reasonable. And if, as a lawyer and a drafter of this ordinance, I could do it and legally have it sustained in court, I would do it right now. Because I understand the occasional crossing of a plane. It doesn't seem like much to me either, okay? It doesn't seem like much to me if you want to have somebody come in your circle and be a part of your magic act. It doesn't seem like that to me, but here's what happens. The courts have looked at First Amendment restrictions and regulations very differently than any other kind of law. It's the United States Constitution, it's the First Amendment, and they look at speech as being the most important, cherished thing we have in this country, and they're probably right. And so when governments get involved in regulating it, they look at a number of things. And one of the things that's top of their list is how much discretion do you give officers in determining a violation versus no violation. And that is the reason that 6 feet isn't 6 foot and 2 toes, it's 6 feet. Because if you gave that discretion to an officer, which I would give these officers that discretion any day, the court won't. Because there are bad actors out there, believe it or not. And some of them wear badges. It's not often, but it happens. And if you had somebody who could say, look, I don't like that dude. He's got 2 toes over. He's getting the citation. But that dude over there is stepping out 3 feet just to accept $1 as a tip. The court's going to say, wow, you now created an ordinance where you have this little bit of fudge room that's in the eye of the beholder. And therefore, it goes down 10 times out of 10 in court. I don't like being put in that box by the courts over time, but that's the lot I drew in life as a lawyer. I got to read these things and I got to understand them and I got to play by those rules. One of those rules is sometimes these things seem harsh. Sometimes they seem random or ridiculous, and I understand. But I'm telling you honestly, and you can talk to Alan Lipson, he'll tell you the same thing. ACO will tell you the same thing. The more discretion you give an officer, the more, if for example, he has to read a sign to determine whether or not you're speaking free speech or entertaining, he's making a judgment call. And they don't want him to have judgment calls. Please, I'm not going to take any questions right now, but I will allow you to.
One question.
Okay, go ahead.
Is there a legal rationale for this 6 feet limitation?
Yes. Well, we made the record at the city council meeting. I know that you were not here, but I will be glad to get you the transcripts of it and everything. What you do, and the courts don't expect us to be perfect at this, but they do expect us to be reasonable and narrowly tailor our solution to the problem in a way that interferes the least with speech. So number one, why the times? We are allowed to do time, place, and manner, okay? Times, 3 in the afternoon to 1 in the morning, because those are the peak hours, and those are the only times we really had problems. And so we don't have any zones other than those times. Place. We look at distance separation between performers because individuals can be so close to each other, they intrude on each other's performances, they create problems with pedestrian traffic flow. 40 feet seem to be the optimal distance between performers because some people use amplifiers, some don't. You have to imagine the worst scenario. You've got everybody with an amplifier, 40 feet's going to look pretty good. You've got everybody doing mimes, maybe 1 foot is good. You know, it all depends on that. 6 feet is an amount of space where you can have what most people are allowed to have in a circle. For example, if you speak speech, most people allow a card table and no more. So we look at that, we look at your ability to perform. The bigger we make the circle, the fewer circles there are on Fremont Street. So if we made them 2 feet and 40 feet apart, we have 38 circles now. We might get up to 45 circles.
You can have a performance area instead of a performance circle. That way the performance is...
And some cities have done things, they call them corrals. They do that in Venice Beach. They have big rectangles, and they have a corral, and that's where you go. And somewhere within that corral, you have to be if you're...
You don't understand. It can be a dot, or it can be a 10-mile circle.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm saying you can have performance areas, and then the performance will determine the size of the space.
I understand what you're saying. The fact of the matter is, you know, and maybe that's something to consider. Maybe they have various size circles on Fremont Street, some bigger and some smaller. I don't know. I just know that the 40 feet was meant to give performers the reason. Let's not argue. You asked me a question. You want me to answer it or not? Okay? You want me to answer it or not? The reason we got the 40 feet is to separate the performers, and the 6 feet was a compromise number that got us a good number of performance zones, 38. If we went to 8 feet, we'd have fewer zones. We went 10 feet, we'd have... Okay, let's talk after the meeting, because I'm not getting it, and I'm eating up Adam's time. Go ahead.
So as far as the circles go, again, stepping out of it, I think maybe it could be equated to the speed limit says 55 miles an hour, yet everybody on the road is traveling at 60 or 65 miles an hour, right? Can you be pulled over and given a ticket? Yes. Would you feel singled out if you were? Yes. But everybody else is doing this, right?
Speaking when you speed? No. And that's the difference. The First Amendment is implicated by having to decide, because you're moving on that circle as part of your performance. And if I say you can't do it, and I tell this person they can, I'm now picking which performer I'm favoring. And the courts are going to look at it that way. And it may sound absurd, but that's the honest to God truth. That's why it's being enforced the way it is.
So does
if there's a way to write it differently where they use no discretion, where you're allowed to step out of the circle for this and this and this reason that's clearly identifiable and nobody has to make a judgment call, that probably would be more sustainable. But without those very, very bright guidelines, the courts shackle these folks. They shackle these folks so they don't use discretion. They just read the law and enforce it. And that really is the way it works in First Amendment law. I'm sorry. But I'm willing to sit down, Adam, and I think what you're saying is perfectly reasonable. I'm not smart enough to have figured out how to do that.
I got one.
You take a 6-foot circle, you put it into a 6-inch circle, and you call it a performing area. That's it.
Okay. We'll talk after the meeting. Go ahead.
Okay, so I know there must be some type of restriction as to what the size area is, because if not, then my act's 100 feet wide, and who's to say it isn't, as long as I'm centering on an area.
And again, I said early on, I'll say it again, we don't care about the size of the circles. We don't care if they're 8 feet or 10 feet. We just know that the bigger we make them, the fewer there are going to be. Okay? So that's really it.
Bigger than what it was before the ordinance, when you can only have 2 by 2.
Right. That's exactly correct. That's exactly.
Certain people like drummers couldn't be in a 2 by 2.
Well, not only that, but you had people next to one another, side by side, shoulder to shoulder, and
we're not having
and there really wasn't. I mean, I'll wrap it up with. Because I think I covered everything I was going to ask, and I may have some questions for you after the meeting, but I'll do that later. I like the performance areas. I think that what originally we were approached a year and a half ago to set out to do, which was to aesthetically make the street look nicer, not have the characters and the performers crowded on top of one another, and not have these gauntlets that the tourists would have to walk. And I think that that's been accomplished. And I know not everyone likes this, and then not everyone is going to be in agreement with it, but it looks nicer out there. Tourists say it does. The performers, some of them say that it does. I feel it gives me a little more freedom to do what I do. I'm able to attract crowds. I don't have to fight for a spot any longer. I don't have to go out there and feel like I need to set up right next to somebody and run them off by building a crowd around them. I feel like I go out there and find an area, go into a spot, and do what I love doing. And this has given me the ability to do that a bit with a bit more ease. The Captain Walsh, who came up and talked about See Something, Say Something, our SPAN members went through that program, and we sat through the class, and as one human to another, whether you're and Michael, I respect what you're doing, and I know that you're in communication with a lot of the performers, and if you want to get a hold of me and set something up so all of our members and our new members go through it at the same time, that you want to bring in the people that you have and do it together, I think it would be great, because right now there is a big issue and there's been a lot of scares in the world, and Fremont Street's a big target. We learned a lot about that in the See Something, Say Something program. So I really encourage all of you to go to it one way or another and learn a bit more about it. So
I will see if I can coordinate that. I spoke with Officer Walsh and said it would be better to have us all there than do it piecemeal.
by all means, anytime.
I think that would be good for overall, because it's starting to bring us closer, and then our people meet your people, and then we go, you know what, we got a common risk out here. If that canopy came down in a bomb, with a bomb going off, performers, everybody's going to get hurt.
Hey, not only would it be a horrific event, but we would not be working down there.
Absolutely.
So,
we have an army of people that could be the eyes and ears to law enforcement.
and again, it's things like this that make me believe that this ordinance and this thing, like I say, we're communicating with one another out on the street. People who characters. My motto out there used to be, I don't go out there to make friends, I go out there to make money. That's it. I don't go out there to make friends. I go out there to make money. It's a job. That's what I do. And I've been approached by people that I didn't think I would be in the past, and I've gone up and talked to people, and just that common ground of, hey, we're out here together. Who's here? Who's there? Do you mind if I go into the spot after you're done? Just those little things have actually generated a little bit more communication amongst the performers. So with that, I'd like to talk to you after the meeting, and I'll turn it over to the next person.
I'm Julie, and this is Mallory, and we do the Showgirl on Fremont Street.
I know you both.
And we might be a little bit of slow learners, but, we did figure out that when we sign up for the lottery, we do have to go stand on those spots. Now, it was much to our dismay. I had to go talk to this gentleman and say a bunch of stuff and get really upset. But, in the end, I reread the little registration thing. And we can elect to be in the lottery or not. So during this time of the year, January, February, there's going to be spots open. So taking your chances most of the time is the best thing to do. Come March, we're going to have a problem if we don't sign up for the lottery, because 500 people are going to want to stand on the street. And so really, I think it's the best way that it can be right now. The only thing is the switching of spots with other people. Because Adam's right. If Adam gets a spot on space E, he's not going to take it. Mallory and I are going to say, oh, we love space E. We want to stand there. and say we have spot 26, which is good for Adam and really bad for us, we do want to be able to switch with Adam. And I think a good way to do that is just to have the people in blue that are checking us in to notify them so they can log it into their report. That makes it easy on everyone. That's easy, it's breezy, nothing really needs to change other than, if we can stand in a better position, we're able in the easiest way possible. And we also think that there's always going to be discord. There's always going to be people that are unhappy. But for the most part, this system works, and it makes things way better. And we like the 2 hours. We like the 2 hours because if you don't get a good spot, or you're not there when things shift and you have to go stand in Siberia, the next 2 hours, you don't. And you can elect to be in a better spot. And we do understand that quite possibly when we stand right in front of the stage in that spot, that some of those performers may not like it. But at the same time, I think it attracts people to their area. So maybe they should consider that. As little that we do by throwing our leg up in the air, it does attract a lot of people to their area. And we can hip bop along to the music, and it makes it fun. And it's fun for the people and fun for everyone. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
We like the spots. We like everything about it. And we want as little change as possible going into March, because that's when you're really going to be able to sit down and see what works and what doesn't.
But if I understand correct, you do favor, if you're in the lottery, you draw a spot, you should be able to trade with somebody else or move spots if there's an open one?
Yes, if it suits you. And I think it should be done in the easiest way possible, just with the blue-shirted security people. They are nice people, and they're very accommodating. So they're not going to say, oh, my gosh, they're good. Everybody's been really nice. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down. Okay. Next.
Hi. Yeah, my name is Murray. I agree with them. I think the system has been excellent. Personally, I'm making a lot more money. It was a zoo out there before. I'm a magician like Adam, and I would step to do my thing. I do play music at the beginning of my show, and oftentimes I'd have like the naked girl standing right behind me just show up with, a foot away from me, and they're dancing to my music and so forth, and a plethora of things. I feel that it seems like the tourists seem like they're less harassed with the way things are set up. And I think it's improved things dramatically. I also think that, as some of the other people have mentioned here today, the three individuals that you have that are wearing the blue shirts have done an exceptional job. They've made mistakes. Personally, I approached this as it was going to be a learning experience, like you said earlier, for all of us. We needed to learn, they needed to learn, and there's going to be some trial and error. It actually has gone off a lot better than I anticipated that it would. I think you guys have done an exceptional job with it. I have seen you out there quite a few times myself, contrary to what's been said earlier today. And the marshals have been tremendous. They're truly public servants. I think they've been ambassadors of goodwill, both to the performers and the tourists and so forth that are out there. They've had to speak to me on a couple of occasions. I'm one of those people that old habits die hard, and I tend to step out of the circle, not consciously, it's just that's what I'm used to doing. And they've spoken to me about it, but they didn't come off like it was some power trip. They spoke to me and said, this is what we're trying to accomplish and so forth, and I think they've done an exceptional job. I do think that you can maybe make the spaces a little bit bigger and just measure them from the center of the space. Say if it was 10 feet, you just take all the spaces where they're at now and just enlarge them. There's still plenty of separations between the performers that way. And I kind of thought that maybe a first come, first serve would be better, because that's sort of what it's turned into now. People have learned you just don't register and then you can get an open spot that you want. But I can also see the potential for some infighting with that. I know that I'm one of the people that they had a conflict on one time, And I will tell you that later that night, I did get to the regulations. It turned out you actually were right.
That's ridiculous. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, no, but you know what?
We went through a 45-minute thing and talked to every authority available, and it came down to I was wrong somehow, and I wasn't sure how that happened.
Well, yeah, but but the thing was, I didn't. When you guys first told me, I said fine. I went to security. I asked them. They said no, they can't do that. So then I went back. They said they would come through when they were doing their checkout. Then the marshals, they merely misinterpreted it.
That's what's
when
so
I did get it later on, you were right, but I think that creates some conflict. And what it was is, the way the regulation is written right now, it says that if you get there, it's a 2-hour time slot. So let's say we're talking about 7 to 9. If you get there 1 minute after 8 and finish out that time slot on that spot, then you can still remain in that spot for the next time slot. That is the way it's written right now.
That loophole's exist.
Yeah, the one that they printed out for me, that's what it said.
Does an older version say that? Because I also read that. Was that an older version of the...
It was that same night they printed it out for me, so this was Sunday, I believe.
Interesting.
Well, what I think you should do, my feeling is 2 hours are good because then you get to rotate. Sometimes you have a lousy spot. There's times I have to sit out for 2 hours. You know, I'll have like 5 to 7, then from 7 to 9 I don't have a spot or a spot that I can work as a magician. And then I have another spot at 9 to 11, and that's fine by me. And I think one of the things that's done, I don't think we're going to have as much conflict as you're thinking that we're going to have. I think there will be some, but I think that what's happened is the idea where just anybody could come out with masking tape or any little costume or whatever they wanted, and now they're a performer, and most of them don't end up lasting. What I think is done is you're delineating between anybody who wants to come out there and do any stupid thing they want. Between those, now they really aren't going to be able to make the kind of money that makes it worthwhile for them, whereas those people who are actually approaching it as a profession are benefiting from it. I think what Adam proposed is probably the best idea. You can say, yes, I want to put my hat and my name in the lottery for these time slots, but I would only want them if I can get, say, I have my first 5 choices. If I don't get that, then maybe it goes to my second choices. By the way, it was good to meet you. Know who some of the people are behind that are making this work, and it really seems like you guys really do have our best interest at heart. You want to create something that's harmonious for everybody. That's going to benefit the city. It's going to benefit the businesses. It'll benefit us as performers, and it'll make the tourists more happy. And that's better because then we can all make money. So the idea of this is, okay, I want to put my hat in the lottery. My first 5 choices are these. If I don't get one of those, these are my second 5 choices. If I don't get those, then I don't want anything. I want to just be unregistered, and then I can go for an open spot. The one other thing, as magicians, we do a show, and then we like to take a break after a show. Sometimes we need to reset our stuff or whatever. We're not performing continuously, and we're not just cranking out one show right after the other. There are some of us that like to share spots, like Adam said. I do my show. When I'm done, I've had my people. When the crowd's dispersed, I move off and the next guy moves in. And what that does, it means you've got 2 people sharing one spot, which means there's another spot somewhere else that's now free because we're sharing a spot instead of us both having to be separate spots. I don't know if I articulated that well enough.
Alternating.
Yeah, exactly. Alternating. Okay, alternating, but let's say there's 2 of us between 7 to 9, and, so Adam goes and does his show, and then when he's done, I go and do my show, and vice versa, but then at the end of the 2 hours, we're gone. We're on to the next spot. Well, because the way it's set up now, you have to register under the same number, which means you then are obligated to perform together all the time, and that doesn't work out.
Actually, you're not. If you register together, one of you can show up. She knows this. We talked about this when you registered.
15 and the other one works 13?
No.
Okay, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So you want
You simultaneously perform separately.
So you want to be able to work as a group when you choose to be a group, and you want to work.
Yes.
That's how art
we
works.
agree,
Supergroups or individual artists.
Okay.
If
We're not performing at the same time. We're not like the break dancers. The break dancers.
I see what you're saying, and we have no opposition to that, okay? It's how do we make it work? Because I can tell you, one of the problems we have had is we've had multiple registrations, and we've had to purge them from the system. Whether it was accidental, or somebody just came in and said, boy, I'm going to really load up my lottery by registering 20 times. We just want to make sure that if you do that, if you're as a group and individual, you don't double your odds on spots. You still have the same odds of getting it. And so I'll talk to Mary about that. We'll talk to IT, but I see what you're saying now.
How come it can't be like, say, Adam's performing from 7 to 9.
Mm-hmm.
He comes up and says, let me join you tonight. They go to the registration booth and say, hey, I've got this one scheduled. This is my spot. He's going to come in when I'm taking my break, perform. So for that time slot, they're working together but not together. Why can't they have an add-on like that?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
how to make it work.
And the blue people,
Yeah.
they walk around anyway, and they check everybody in.
Right.
So when they do walk around and check in, if you note that to them, they can write it down
Yeah,
right then.
yeah, and that's exactly what's occurred, just like she
Let me
said.
just say, I agree. We don't have a problem with it. It's like the devil's always in the details. How do we make it happen? I need to talk to Mary and IT, and I need to talk to these guys at the back of the room that enforce it, and make sure we get those pieces together. But I don't have a problem with that.
Can I make a recommendation? It's Julie, as Julie just said. At the top of the hour now, they start at one end, and it takes them 30 to 45 minutes to go all the way through, depending on what issues they encounter along the way. But when they come there and actually check you into that spot, if the other performer's there and they both agree, say, we're going to work this spot together, or like Adam said, you do your show, then when you're done, you move off and I move on and do mine. What that does then is it just frees up another spot somewhere else. And if two performers are there and agree that we'd like to work the spot together like that, with this, registering with the security at that moment in time, then I think that would just take care of the problem altogether.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Like I say, our goal isn't to impede performances or prevent those kinds of collaborations. Our goal is to spread out and rotate to make sure everybody has an opportunity to perform. How many are in the circles? We don't care. What you do in the circle? We don't care. As long as it doesn't exceed the decibels, and you're gone in 2 hours to another one. That's the only thing. So if this is why we're here, just to tune this thing. If there are things we're not doing that can make it better, again, you may not like it no matter what we do, but if we can at least make it better and keep those fundamental things in place, we're happy to accommodate you.
The one other thing is that I've noticed that on times where I am registered in a spot, and I get there, and it's not like, I'll let the people know, yeah, I'm here for the next shift. They're still on there. But then here it is 10 minutes after the hour, and they still haven't moved. And it's mainly has occurred, I don't want to sing, I want to go out with palm artists. They don't even start cleaning their stuff up till the light show's over. Light show ends 10 minutes after the hour, then it takes them another 5 to 10 minutes to clean their stuff, pack their stuff up, and move. You've already lost 20 to 30 minutes of your time. So that would be something that would be good if it could be enforced, although I haven't encountered that very much, so I think it's a minor issue at this time. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's actually occurred to me once, and I'm not like I said, I don't want to single anybody out.
Maybe you guys can talk after the meeting and
yeah, and it's not with all the Palm people either. And also strictly enforcing, you can bring your equipment out there, but it has to be able to fit in the circle. Sometimes I see groups that are coming in and they've got like 2 different strollers filled up with stuff, and they're just, I mean, we don't want to make this, look like it's a homeless shelter, or
I understand what you're saying. For us too, like we said everything you bring has to fit in your circle. That's in the law.
Okay.
And so,
all right.
we have been, like I say, we go back to this, light-handed touch right now. Like I said, we can disagree as to what it is, but there have been warnings on these things. We have really resisted issuing citations only in a situation where somebody absolutely insists on getting a citation, basically.
And you know what? That's been my experience. Personally, my experience has been that you have been light-handed. Like I said, once again, I think you guys have done an exceptional job so far. And personally, I expected there was going to be some trial and error, and there is a lot less than I actually anticipated. The fact that you're having these types of meetings so that we can say, okay, now let's fine-tune this and fine-tune that. And eventually, I think if we keep doing that, we'll get to a point where we do have a really good system. And, I think that ultimately what ends up happening, those are people that are out there that are professional. For example, Julie and her partner, at times we'll have 10 or more different sets of showgirls out there. They're the only ones that actually look like showgirls from my days, when I went to see the Lido.
That's a nice compliment.
Well, no, I mean, it's honest. I mean, I had actually been to shows in the past where they had showgirls. They have a certain look. They carry themselves in a certain way. They have a certain stature. There are some girls that come out there as showgirls, and they just,
Let me say,
for lack of a
but we still have more people to talk, but
Yeah.
if that's it, I got it
Yeah,
all.
absolutely.
And again, I'll be here after the meeting too. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Maloan. My name is David, also as Dan DeVito or the Penguin. There are a lot of things, like last year, I did excellent, way before the circles. It seems like when the circles came in, the money dropped, the characters dropped, my records dropped, because they're looking for the certain person that walks around and entertain them. It's kind of hard for me to entertain people when they see me standing still. I like everybody else here, this is how I make my income. This is where I put my food on the table for my kids, my grandkids, and for myself, and pay my bills. And if you're only making $10 a day, like it was, when was the last time I was out on Friday night? $15 the whole freaking night. There's one night I did $1. Because the circles. I like the circles, but it's not coming in. When I worked Fremont, when I worked Atlantic City, to have it with the city, you have to sign up and they give you badges like you folks did. But they got on the marquee, they got like a marquee with names of the performers that was working that week. They take week by week by week. And also San Francisco, Pier 39, and Richmond Warp, week by week by week. Maybe something that might work like that. You might not be there every day, but maybe the whole week you can do it by weeks. So, and then we get a strip. We can work.
Gotcha.
That's all I have to say.
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming down.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the first time I've seen you without makeup, by the way.
I do look like him.
You do. Remarkable.
My name is Buddy Big Mountain. I've been performing out here from February 26, 2013. The only place I've ever busked. I've always been on stage since 1957. And anyway, that's how I lived my life. Busking is very, very different from stage. And I like the circles because it's like having a stage. I like the space between them. I like a lot about it. As far as money goes, it's the same, up and down. You don't know how much you're going to make, especially like right now when the crowds are small. Sometimes you get a lot from a small crowd. Sometimes you get little from a large crowd. So it's very difficult out there because, and that's the way we make shows. So we have to do whatever. Okay? I like all the spots. Actually, all of them have been very good to me at one time or another. They are not perfect all the time. Sometimes it's not good. Sometimes it's great. I perform in front of the stages once in a while. F, I, and A, I'm not very fond of, especially if there's something going on. But any other time when there's no shows, that's great. During the shows, if I'm in the letters, I I can save my battery because I can dance to whatever music's there. You know, I got that little dancer out there, and he dances to anything. And sometimes I make more if they're dancing to something that the people understand, you know, not drum music or the music I pick out. I like the lottery. I actually tried going to every spot instead of going to an empty spot that I like better. And that's how I found out that each spot during the 2 hours may have a few minutes of greatness in them. Eh? And then conflicts, I think everyone has a conflict. I've been kicked. They've been blades pulled on me a couple times, and but it's that has nothing to do with the spots. It just has something to do with the person that confronts you.
This is another entertainer?
Oh, no, these are the people that come in, other Indians, basically.
Oh.
Yeah, other Indians or someone that's tweaking that my figure looks up at and they freak out because his eyes look real. But,
that's great.
Yeah.
The day he walks away without those strings, then I'm going to be freaked out.
Yeah, I would be too. Yeah. But then I like the idea about the blocks, blocking spots that you like. That's a good idea because I know there's a lot of people I can't perform as easily as I can in most of the spots out there. And that's about it. I am Native American, and we have been conforming and changing and working with everything that comes up, and I take pride in being able to work with everything that comes up. I followed in my dad's footsteps, and I thank him, I thank my mom, I thank you for taking your time when you are out there to come and see me. Anyway, that's it. I want to thank everyone, all these people here, people in the back. It's not this guy coming up now, but no, just but anyway, thank you, and I like what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yawa.
Hi. Okay, I'm going to make this quick because I was asked to do this. I'm not going to give you my resume because it doesn't matter, because like the people that give the resumes, they've all walked out because they don't care what we have to say. Okay, a few areas that I found that need to be improved on, and I'm going to say good and bad about everything. First of all, people who sign up for spots that don't show up, there should be a 15 to a 20-minute time limit. If you're not there in 15 to 20 minutes, if you can't go pee, get your soda, get your drink, get a whatever, get to your new spot, they should not kick a person out that is waiting to be there. At the same time, if you are scheduled, I believe, if you are scheduled from 3 to 5, you don't have a spot from 5 to 7, but you've got one 7 to 9, you should be given first priority for the spots that are available, is what I'm thinking is what it should be. Because that way, you're not sitting dead. If you're willing to do the lottery and sign up for it, why should you not be given first priority? Just one of the areas I'm in. A couple of areas I find that I have a problem with are sign holders in their wheelchairs or standing there, your cancer lady, all these other people that I'm assigned to this 6-foot spot. I cannot move. But they can come move right here in front of me, not a foot and a half out of my square, and there's not a thing we can do about it. Okay, you can ask the marshals if they'll ask them to move. They don't have to move because it's their First Amendment freedom of speech to sit where they want to sit, do what they want to do. They're sitting there drinking their beer, doing whatever, and we can't do a thing about it. It interferes with our restricted rights where we have to stand. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm in full agreement of the circles. So, the other ones I have a problem with, timeshare and nonprofit organizations that are allowed to set up wherever they want to with no restrictions. And the timeshare people and the let me put some lotion on your face so you look prettier people can come right back out, as it happened the other day when I was talking to a Fremont Street Experience officer. Timeshare lady came up, walked right between us to talk to the person we were at to invite them inside to look at their timeshare. They should be restricted too, which they have restrictions, but they're not enforced on where they can go to.
First of all, I agree. I want to stop you there. Both those things you described are businesses.
Mhm.
They are not protected by the First Amendment. That's why you are. If you were all hired out there, you wouldn't be sitting here right now. That's not First Amendment. That's a job. And that's very different rules with jobs than performance. Just 1 minute, Mike. Oh, go ahead.
Issue on sign spinners. Back a couple of years ago when I worked for the UFCW, they adopted the same First Amendment laws for picketing and strikes in order to hire people to spin signs for whatever business. And then a court did rule that they had the same rights as everybody else, even though they're actually employees of somebody. And if they're in a public area or quasi-public area, they could beat it. And like he's saying, I've been performing and I've had timeshare people step right. I'm playing a guitar and somebody's looking at me and they step between and go, "Hey, you want to drop 15 grand on a timeshare?" And I just kind of laugh and go, "Who the hell's going to go to Vegas and say, I got 15 grand here, let me buy a timeshare?" But
Exactly.
They make it real.
I understand what you're saying. And this goes back to what I said before about, that's a perfect example of why these courts have made this so very difficult. I'm not trying to criticize the courts. I understand where they're at. But solicitation, right? whether I'm asking for money because I'm homeless, or whether I really do have a stage 3 cancer mom and I gotta get home, or I'm soliciting for timeshare. The court's gonna say, you have to read the sign to determine which is commercial and which isn't. We don't like that. And therefore, we treat them all the same. And that's what the courts have done.
What happened with that law was that individual who's the employee has a First Amendment right aside from the business. So even though the business thing was commercial, they were able to invoke their rights. The rights got expanded even further to commercial.
Interesting.
And I'll see if I can find the case law and send it to you. But that happened about 9 years ago in California.
That's kind of consistent with what I've seen happening over time. But I'm sorry to interrupt.
Which isn't bad. Everybody should have the right, but we should all somehow make this work.
Understand. Go ahead, Tom.
Cool, law firm here. Here we go. Okay, also, I'm seeing a lot of performers who don't have spots walking up and down Fremont Street, looking for a spot until someone wants to take a picture, then, oh, they found a spot. Take the picture, get their tip, and then leave again, and continue walking up and down. That should not be allowed. Okay, I know the marshal's office are doing a hell of a job out there. They're very friendly. To get a couple issues, like I said earlier, the security force out there will let you switch spots with another performer. If you're in a conflict with another, say you have two drummers sitting side by side, if you go up and talk to the blue shirts or even the marshals, they can allow you to move to an open spot or to another spot. They're very accommodating right now to us if you go up and talk to them. And you said you don't have a way to get a hold of them. Go up there, ask, well, I call her T. What's her name?
I like all the employees. They just never seem to be around when I need them.
She will give you the cell number where you can send her a text with what spot you're in and a real brief, and she will show up, or one of the officers, whoever's carrying the phone, or the marshals will show up. And trust me, last time I had an issue like this, it was less than 3 minutes, and they were there going, hey. So that's just
police.
Let's agree that we will get you the information to make this better.
Yeah, that's I'll give it to you. I covered all that, done that. Someone said something about the real estate out there. Yes, there are dance groups that are offering other performers money for their spots. Well, okay, if you only made $6, yeah, you're going to take a $10 or a $20 hit. Unfortunately, that's going on, but that's an elective, it's not a force. I don't agree with it, but that's the way it should be. Some of the other things that we went to, I believe that because the way these things are being clogged up, that if you sign up for a spot, there are some people that are signing up for a lot of spots that don't show up on purpose to try to clog the system up or to save spots for other people. I think if you sign up and you purposely don't show up continuously, that whoever signs up should be banned for 24 hours from Fremont Street for not showing up. Because all that's doing is taking away a spot from somebody else. If they're doing it on purpose. If they have an accident or they're ill or they can't show up for a reason, then call the number that you get from security and say, hey, I'm not going to make it. Because that's what we were told before. Call them, let them know. If you have to leave early, say, hey, I'm leaving, my spot's available. And be gone. That way they can take you off of it. So if the marshals come around, they say, well, okay, no, he left. Or they left. Because they can change that thing every minute of every day on their handwritten copy that they have. So, and I do look forward to working more with the city on the spacing, even though she doesn't like me. We won't go into the strip, but we'll go there. But I want to thank you for the work you do, Keith, for the work you do, for the work your office is doing. For he's helpful in the booth over there. I do thank the marshals for being here, the representatives from Fremont Street, and everybody else. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody who hasn't spoken before we go back to people who have? Or anybody who hasn't spoken? Okay. Oh, I need to let you know before you speak, we have no more than 15 minutes. The Planning Commission meets in this chambers tonight.
Sure.
I didn't anticipate we'd go this long, but I'd go all night if they didn't come in here. But they have to do a sound check and get everything reset for them. So we have
Sure.
15 minutes. So.
Yeah, my name's Zenon. I'm one of the KISS guys. Thank everybody for being here. Very cool. And I appreciate all the stuff that Jared said. It really cuts down on what I wanted to say. Yeah, as far as pairing up, like my ex-girlfriend, she's worked solo, but sometimes she's wanted to pair up with somebody else, and now there's no, you can't work with so and so. That obviously needs to be changed. You should be able to work with whoever you want to somehow. I have a problem with the measurement from the stage for we call it the exile area, the overflow area. Yeah, that was not properly measured, and it's something like 130 feet instead of 100 feet from the stage. So it's very restrictive. It's hard to get people if you're gonna.
Can I stop you there and I'll tell you the problem? And I didn't know it at the time. We put a circle there right at the edge of the canopy, and so we're not doing the 100-foot things right now. At least we're
right.
When that circle is right on the edge of the canopy, right directly across from the stage, is being, I don't know what number it is, or letter.
Like where the Christmas tree was, I think it's J.
Yeah, J, that's right. When J is occupied, the ordinance says you have to be 40 feet away from a performer. So when J is occupied, you are 40 feet back from the canopy.
Mm-hmm.
When J is not occupied, it's right there at the canopy. That's
Mm-hmm.
just the real. And we didn't think about that when we went through it. When I told Joe you could have all of 3rd Street,
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about the 40-foot distance separation in that circle.
Mhm.
So that's my fault.
Well-
and I take responsibility for it.
That's outside the ordinance on C. And as the ordinance is written, it's only Fremont Street.
Yeah, but
So the 40
But-
feet
but
that
Jay
extend
has a-
into that
Jay-
area shouldn't count, right?
well, J becomes a meaningless circle if on almost every side except for that side you have 40 feet, and then when you get there, somebody's right next to you. And so that's why we've done it that way, and I think we just need to clarify it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
you're right, I get it. That's why. If you got a solution to it, I'm all
yeah.
ears, but that's why.
Well, originally it was a concern because of the whole 6-foot rule. Like, for example, I stated before, sometimes I work solo, sometimes with another KISS guy or 2 or 3 others. Now, if 6 feet, it's hard to you can't stand shoulder to shoulder in a straight line in a 6-foot circle. So we, everybody's schedule is different, so we're not all working together. But when we were, we just simply formed a semicircle and made sure the people that were standing outside, that wanted to take pictures with us, were standing outside the circle. But initially, we worked, in that spot, and again, we thought that it was measured improperly from the stage, and we thought that just because we couldn't all fit in the circle, standing on the line, that we had no choice but to not work in a circle.
I can think of just 2 solutions to this. One is what we've done is just say we forgot about that 40 feet on the back side of that circle, and it's 40 feet only when it's occupied, or we can get rid of J. Now you only have 37 circles instead of 38, but now that line's always there and it never moves.
Mm-hmm.
What might make sense is to split J into 2 parallel with the palm trees, and it might be less than 40 feet. But
Yeah, if it's still 40 feet from the other
Yeah.
things, we're fine. If it's not, then we got a problem.
Yeah.
You'd have an additional spot, or you can move the one spot that's off to the left of Fremont, and what would happen there is it would still keep traffic flowing, but would be.
Can we say, regardless of how we solve it, we're not going to solve it right here, what you would like is that to be the line no matter what, whether Jay's occupied or not, the line be closer to the.
Sure,
Gotcha.
sure. And
Got
since
it.
we're talking about KISS guys, the comment Jared made a while back, that was
Hypothetical. I've never had a conflict with the KISS guys. They're great.
cool.
Which KISS guys?
Any of them.
Any of them.
Any of them. I can never tell the difference until I'm talking to them.
And he wears clothes. So.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the
Go-
difference. I'm looking shoulders up.
There you
That's.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I've spoken to several of the kiosk workers, and they actually aren't really in favor of the circles, and they said that they actually made more money when the ordinances weren't in place. Also, I don't think the DV levels are being measured properly.
Do you think that they're, explain.
I think there's I've never measured dB levels, but I think there's a certain distance that you have to have the meter away from where the sound's coming from, and I don't think the Baker 7 guy, who hasn't revealed his real name to any of us, measures it properly.
Yeah, let me answer that real quick, because somebody mentioned earlier, it might have been Michael, that you've got all this ambient noise out there.
Mhm.
And so how do you know you're not picking up ambient noise versus the performer?
Right.
One, it's a directional microphone. It's very highly sensitive, and so that eliminates a lot of it. But the ordinance has 2 things in it. It has the decibel measurement at 25, is it 25 feet? I thought it was
30.
Yeah, 25 feet, and then 1 foot. So what they're doing is they're doing a 25 foot, because it's a lot less work. If they see a problem at 25,
Mhm.
then they'll go up to 1. And if
Mhm.
at 1 foot you're in excess of what's here, then they'll tell you. So they are picking up at 1 foot, and so that eliminates any possibility that we're picking up something else.
Yeah, and again, obviously, if we're relegated to a certain circle and you got a DJ that's at 120 dBs or whatever the heck it is, it really,
Understood.
drowns out any Kiss music. Kind of silly. Also, there's a palm leaf twister. She's that old haggard-looking lady that she came up to me about a week ago. I was in a spot. I was by myself. I had my PA with me. I need to use the bathroom. So I went to a place. I'm not going to mention all the places that are bathroom friendly because I don't want the powers that be to all of a sudden talk to them and go, oh, hey, don't let characters in. But I went to the bathroom. I came back. She was in my spot. I said, excuse me, you're in my spot. And this was the second time I had an issue with her. I had a partner another time, and she kind of grumbled and moved on. But since it was the second time, she said, well, as far as I know, a security guy, didn't mention who it was, security told me that if somebody leaves a spot that it's abandoned and I could take the spot. I said, go ahead and bring security. Again, I went to the restroom. There's no one to watch my stuff. I came back. This is my spot. It was my spot from 7 to 9. It's 8:20. You want to come here at 9? Come back at 9. I never heard from her after that, but yeah, she's definitely an issue. Yeah, and the Baker 7 guy thought it was funny when a while back when Michael was doing a measurement for the for that spot that we were talking about earlier. Yeah, he thought it was funny that he was measuring it with a picket sign. Like all of a sudden, because it's a picket sign, it's an invalid measurement. I was at Lowe's with Michael when we got the picket signs made. We know exactly, the measurement of the sign. So, yeah. So anyway, he seems to laugh at things like that. What else? Oh, the last issue would be this. I was under the impression that because, since these ordinances were adopted, that the New Year's Eve thing would be more lax. And I didn't go back to actually check and see what allegedly there were 3 performers that were allowed on the far end, on the crappy part of the place, I would say, by Slotzilla, were allowed to perform. I didn't bother even signing up for the lottery, so I have no idea if I would have been chosen. I have no idea. So we just decided to go ahead and work on the strip. But I would think that since you had people that were willing to identify themselves, that whole thing would go out the window. And it's ridiculous that, just because you have face paint on, that you're possibly a terrorist. Give me a break. You guys know who we are. It should have been thrown out the window. Let's call it what it is. You know that we make a bunch of money on New Year's Eve. You didn't want us there. That's what it is, plain and simple.
Yep. I respect what you're saying. I'm not here to debate that one way or the other. I will tell you that this was our first New Year's under this ordinance. I know that before it, I met with Fremont Street, and I met with the city staff, and we identified that 3rd Street would be open for performances, and the circles not under the canopy would be open for performances. And so if people didn't know that, or they would regard it as garbage anyway, nobody wanted to do it, I mean, I will do it better next year. That's all I can say.
Yeah, also the verbiage on the sign was a little conflicting. It said, and I have a picture of it somewhere that I sent to somebody. It was...
You sent it to me.
Yeah, I did send it to you, but I sent it to a few other people. And it just,
We'll get it better next year. That's all I can say. It's our first year and went through it, and like I say, if we can get more information, that's why we're having these meetings. We'll get it better next year.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, as we were working in front of the Hard Rock on the Strip, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the Hard Rock on the Strip, but there's that entrance area, and some. What's that? Yeah, there's a landscape. Yeah, there's a landscape area out in front, and security gave us a hard time because we were there, and they said, well, there was just, I know that the city of Las Vegas is watching, or the county's watching what's going on here, and they're looking to, institute similar stuff there to run people off. So.
You know more than I do because the city doesn't talk to the county lately.
Yeah.
I've read the newspapers.
Sure. All right. Well, that's it.
That's a joke for getting county
All right.
people to
Thanks.
listen. Okay, 4 minutes.
Just a couple of quick points to some of the points that were addressed. Mr. Flowers mentioned that he hasn't found conflict. He's found new friends and polite conversations. You're 6'2", 240. I'm 6'3", 270. Every conversation I have is polite too. The conversations with her when I'm not around are far less polite. So you are a big man. Of course everyone's nice to you. No one bullies you. It would be a bad move. People bully girls. People bully, you know what I mean? Even the showgirls, they're tough. I wouldn't try to bully them either. But if you're standing there twisting balloons, you look a little more like a victim than you do. So we have met more aggression and less friendliness. They probably feel like an easier way to bump us is with force if I'm not there. If I am there, of course, I have the friendly conversation that you've discussed. That's why I have to be there now the entire time. I can't leave her alone or it's that problem. The other type of conflict that I didn't mention and maybe no one else sees maybe is with drunken tourists who do not recognize your authority to that particular spot on the ground. When it's 7 o'clock and they're watching the show and we roll up and it's, excuse me, sir, see this poker chip on the ground here? F you can take it you can be anywhere on this street. Well, no, sir, actually I can't. You can be anywhere on this street. Those have been nearer conflicts than anything I've had with street performers is people who don't like being told where to stand because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and I think that includes punching me in the nose. Yeah, and I can't displace them, can I?
Keep going through your list.
Sorry, yeah, they have a First Amendment right to be where they are too. I can't displace them, even if it is my assigned circle. They're not involved in any lottery. We are discussing about a random system versus a first-come, first-served system. Any system that leaves empty spots is unacceptable. Any system that leaves empty spots unattended for 2 hours is you not providing the 35 that you promised to provide at the beginning. So something has to be worked out for those spots to be filled, or through loopholes and technical issues, we can have a bunch of empty spots.
I agree.
One thing to my brother who plays the amazing steel drums, he was saying if only there was some kind of segregation system where the loud people could be in one place and the naked people could be somewhere else. We had that already right before we made this ordinance. It was already like that, and people did self-segregate, and dirty acts were with dirty acts, and clean acts were with clean acts, and really loud folks went across the street by themselves because they knew that they were going to be loud and have 100 people watching. It already kind of worked like you described. The Wonderland you described was here before we added these rules. Some comments I have to the folks that run the website, constructive ones. Too many checkboxes. We can't be clicking 1,000 checkboxes, so we need some select all type stuff, because especially on a smartphone, it's actually very difficult to sit and press every one of those boxes, and I've spoken to many of the less savvy street performers who thought they were in the lottery, and it comes to find out they weren't. They'd missed rows of boxes or something like that. The system should be an individual opt-in or out per spot, just a separate random drawing per spot per time period. That way I can just say, these are the spots that are acceptable. Because it might be different. The spot that I want 7 to 9 might be different than the spot I want 11 to 1. Maybe I'm okay with over in front of Walgreens 7 to 9, but 11 to 1, I'd never stand there. So that's easy for your programmer to do, just with each individual one being an individual. And this guy can go. And come summer, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off, but they're really going to boot me out of here, I swear.
I know I tend to be long-winded, so I made these bullets so it'll go quicker. One, restroom issues. If we could put porta potties of some kind, like handicapped ones big enough for performers to change in behind all the stages, or in whatever location where it would be great. Or if we can get some kind of agreement with the casinos to go in the back door undressed. The other thing is the 40-foot rule I don't think works. I think it should be 20 or 15, 25 feet, something more, so we can have more circles. Performers who don't stand still, if we had them to float, that would open up more circles, and if they just walked continuously back and forth, marched up and down, it wouldn't impede traffic, and if they had an agreement not to stand in front of a performer to take a tip, that would give us more space. And then the last two are, and actually the Fremont Street guys from the FSC, the C Street area could be developed up with maybe some signage to coordinate people to go down there, and maybe do a horseshoe in order to have some kind of signage to alert that the performer's down there. The tourists might walk down there, and then that'll free up more space. And also on the issue of private events, whether it's First Fridays or a New Year's Eve, if it's a private event and they're the ones having the private event, they could actually allow who they choose to perform in there. And that could be agreed upon on those dates. Because I know First Fridays, I can't come in because I'm a guitar player and I have an amplifier, and I can't bring the card in. But since it's a private event, they could have the say on who comes and who goes, separate than it being an open public event. And finally, I may try the circles and give you an unbiased opinion of what I think of them. Try it for a week and get back to you. I know I've said ethically I won't, but I may try it just to see, and then I can give you my thoughts on it. All right. And I'm willing to work with anybody. I'll give you 20, 30 hours a week to, whatever time's needed. So anytime if somebody calls me or emails me, I'll come down with ideas and put in some input.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You had the last word. For anybody watching web streaming, thanks for watching in. For those of you who came, thank you very much for taking time out from your day to share it with us. I'm going to stick around personally. We won't have use of the microphones or cameras anymore. So if you need me, I'll be here.
I got there's new slips here. Buddy, thank you for coming. Last year, I'm glad you came. So,
I got one before, but I need two to get out of here, right?
no,
Can I put two of them in there? And then, you sure? Oh, this one?
Yeah, that's the up at 5 o'clock.
Oh, okay, awesome. Perfect. Thank you.
Anyone need a new slip for 5 o'clock?
No, I don't.
Is that for this one or for the next time?
He's giving me a ride.
All right, that works.
Yeah. The ordinance. You have a copy of the ordinance there?
We have, I don't know. See if we have any.
Well, I mean, a lot of questions.
You should have limited us.